All right, I think we're live. I think we're good to go. All right, hey guys, what is up? Welcome to the movie discussion Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist, and the only thing that matters is film. That's Jay, and I'm Cole, and we are back for the finale to finish off our much suffering series on the new French Extremity that we started a while back, and we've had some delays that kind of dragged it out a bit. But this will be the final one. This is Sheitan, I think is how you pronounce it, from 2006. I'm glad that 2006 is up on the title there because I think I would have forgotten the year, actually. And this is a film that bears quite a bit of similarities to Frontiers, which we already covered. They have similar sort of setups, although, the content winds up being quite different. And as far as being part of the new French Extremity, it has the elements. Although I have to say, the last like 20 minutes is really where a lot of the extreme sort of stuff happens, and it kind of goes by quickly and rushed. And it's too bad they couldn't have made it a little longer, and we could have seen a bit more of the weird, messed up stuff that these films are known for. But anyway, we'll get into that. So this is my first time seeing the film. I know that Jay had seen it before, and probably what made, but I chose it when we were looking at various ones where we were narrowing it down. I chose it because I like sort of the Satanism angle, because that makes it a little different from stuff that we've covered before. And just in any sort of genre film, I always like stuff with like Satanism or cults and stuff. This movie only sort of touches on it a little bit. It doesn't go too in depth, but it's there, and I kind of like that element. So that's sort of what attracted me to it when I read about it.
Yeah, it bears a lot of similarities to Frontiers, and I think Frontiers may have been the same year. But it so much so that I've gotten them confused. Even when we were discussing before the show, I was getting the two confused because it's the same aspect of taking a car to like an old farmhouse.
A
group of people to
both groups of 20-something people, and they're sort of on the fringes of society a bit. In Frontiers, they're basically kind of a criminal gang in a way. They're not hardened criminals, but at least they've pulled some jobs. These guys are more amateurish, and they're just more like, they're not exactly, you wouldn't even really call them criminals, but they're kind of losers, and they just wind up doing like a gas and dash thing where they at the gas station they shoplift and then take off not paying for the gas. But you get the feeling they probably have done that sort of thing before. But again, they're not exactly, you wouldn't call them, they're not quite the same as the other group, which seems more like they're like a group that's actively together to like participate in crime and stuff like that. And the other thing that has in common is like, once again, we have a fairly actually this is more diverse. We have a fairly racially diverse group of protagonists. I have to say that when watching the new French Extremity, it seems like they're way ahead of like the Hollywood movies as far as the whole diversity thing going on for main characters. So what we got here is we have a couple Muslim characters. One who's from Algeria. We have our token black character, I guess you could say, who said he was a Muslim.
Lodge,
yeah. And I think one of the guys is Asian. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so a fairly diverse group of main characters, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I forgot Yasmin.
It's a different wrinkle. I mean, it doesn't add too much, but again, it shows like. Once again, I think some people. I said this when I was reading comments years ago about like something about one of the District 13 movies. It seemed like some people, like Americans, seemed genuinely surprised at the wide range of diversity in a country like France. Like they don't know that like France gets all sorts of immigrants and people from different countries and stuff too, just like over here.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen quite a few French films, and there often is racial diversity, like you said.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
coming out of a place like Paris, right? I mean, Paris is one of the most major cities in the world. So of course, people from all over come there, and So this movie is once again sort of a reflection of that. Again, it's not a big deal, not a huge part of the plot, but just a little side note that makes it a little interesting.
And Joseph, Vincent Cassel's character, he definitely makes it a point to point out everyone's racial differences.
Yes, he does. And I guess they're so freaked out by him that they just decide to kind of let it go
They just, yeah, all right.
as he throws his various slurs around, which I'll admit, as an Anglophone, they don't have quite the same impact when you hear them in French. For instance, at one point, I won't use the word just so people won't freak out, but he says something that's sort of like, I guess, the French equivalent of the English N-word. And all you can think is, well, probably nobody freaked out because he didn't actually use the English term, because the English term is the real bomb there, right? Although, again, it's still, I'm sure in polite society, you still don't say that in French. But I'm just saying, yeah, as Anglophones, we hear some of these terms, and they just can't really have the same impact for us, although, of course, they are meaningful. He kept calling the girl from the Algerian a Turk, the little Turk.
Turk, yeah.
Yeah.
The little brown one.
Yeah, but not that this is important either. But again, since this is once again another French movie, I did notice more so than the other movies. This happens all the time. This movie is really full of a lot of phrases and euphemisms that they use, and they don't translate well at all. And yet, the version we watched basically tries to translate them, and it's really awkward and weird.
Yeah, okay. So that's why it was
there's
so
a few
weird.
times there's a few times I'm sure where you've noticed like it just seems like a really weird thing for somebody to say. Well, that's because they're kind of just translating it verbatim. Whereas
Right.
now I'm not like, even though I'm somewhat fluent in French, I'm not like an expert on all their phrases and stuff like that. But at least there are a couple that I recognized, and and the meaning is the same, but you know what I mean. It's the delivery is different, and
well, most of the time it was Joseph saying the stuff, and he's kind of like batshit crazy the entire time. So I didn't really put much thought into it. He's a crazy guy.
Some of it was like stuff that some of our main characters were saying, and just like, especially if they were like getting ready to curse or something like that. Like there's one part where they're chasing the guys towards the end. I don't even know why they're chasing them, and he says something like he'll like fill your mother up or something really weird. Yeah, it just doesn't. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But in French, it sounds okay, given, But so yeah, there's a few moments like that where usually when people are insulting each other and stuff like that, or for at least the version we watched, they basically just try to translate it verbatim, word for word, and it doesn't work out because that just happens between languages. Because sometimes you have words that are fine. Table in every language is table. That's fine. But once you get into more, intangible stuff and concepts and stuff, and it's harder to do direct translations, and when you try to, they lose impact.
Sure.
I notice this a lot, even in stuff that where I don't understand the language. Like there's a lot of Japanese stuff, obviously, that I watch, and I don't know Japanese, but sometimes you'll just hear. Sometimes they'll choose once again to do sort of a direct translation for some of these phrases and stuff, and it just sounds really weird. And you're like, do Japanese people like say these odd, bizarre things? It's like, no, not really. They just have their own thing, but when it translates, it's bizarre. I even noticed a few things like that, and I just watched Parasite finally.
Awesome.
Finally got out to the theater to see that. And there's even a few instances in that where like it seems like what they're saying seems really awkward and odd, and you're just wondering like, is it sort of just a translation, not mix up exactly, but just sort of like maybe not a great choice for how they chose to do the translation. But that's always an issue whenever you're translating movies, is how language is.
It's like people are going to complain either way. They're going to, if you try to add the meaning that it actually means, they're going to say, well, we want that's not the real translation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to please everyone with that. I know I bitch about that all the time too.
Yeah. And just sometimes too, like other languages have different grammatical structures. So sometimes if you were to like translate it right into English, it would just sound like really awkward English. But like luckily most of the time, especially in like more mainstream stuff, they're pretty good about it. Like especially with the Mandarin, but because the Chinese language is Mandarin and Cantonese, both of them, the way they move verbs around and stuff, they don't use all the qualifiers we use necessarily. Like even in a simple thing like ni hao ma and stuff like that, like if you're literally saying it, you're just literally saying you good, me good. And it's like, what? Do the Chinese people talk like cave people? Well, no, that's just how their language works. It's the same thing, the way they'll put the subject sometimes at the end of a sentence, which again, if you translate directly, it sounds like you're speaking like fucking Yoda. And again, that's not the cadences. That's not how Chinese people speak. They don't speak like Yoda. But if you just translate it directly, put it in English. It seems that way. It seems stilted and weird. But you really only notice it in some of the lower budget or older movies, specifically a lot of those Hong Kong movies that were Cantonese. You'll often get really weird translations from them where it seems like everybody sounds really stupid. You're just even the characters that might be supposed to be rich or well educated, they sound like everybody's talking on the same level, like they're a bunch of uneducated morons. Well, that's just because it's a really poor translation.
Right.
It's not poor writing, and it's not poor, not even necessarily acting, even though these movies don't have the greatest acting, some of them. But it's just sort of like a slapdash translation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. So this movie has a very similar setup to Frontiers. We got a group of young people, and the other one what is it? They're and plus they've committed a robbery, and one of them has gotten shot. Are we still running? Okay, good.
I don't know if it's me or you. Maybe me.
Oh, well, what I saw both of us cut out for a few seconds.
So what were you saying?
I was just saying, so in Frontiers, you've got a group of young people, and there's riots going on in Paris, and during the riots, they pull off a robbery, but one of them gets shot, and they're sort of on the run, and they don't actually have a set destination. They're just looking for any place to lie low. This one, I even missed a bit and had to go back and check, because I didn't the first time I was watching it, I didn't realize that Eve wasn't part of their group. Originally, they didn't really know Eve.
Right, she was just someone they just met. Yeah.
Although, the other girl, Yasmin, says she did know her, but she says a childhood friend. So I guess what she means is we don't hang out now, but I used to know her when you were younger. I missed that the first time. So I was just really confused, why, Eve, who's their friend, would bring them to this crazy place and why she seemed okay with it.
Well, that was her house, right? That's where she lived.
That was her actual house. And
let's go hang out at my house.
And so that confused me. Then the second time, when I caught up and realized, oh, okay, they're just meeting Eve for the first time. And it seems like the normal thing. It's okay, this is where she's from. She's luring them into a trap. And spoilers, that really is what's going on here. But the way it's carried out is so weird. There were times where I doubted it. I was like, no, she seems just as weirded out as they are by some of this stuff.
I think it was an act.
Everything just breaks into chaos at the end, and I know what people who haven't seen the movie are thinking. Well, that's how all these things happen. Everything's fine until it's not. The thing happens, and then the people are running and screaming, and that's true. But I have to say, it was less clear in this movie than something like in Frontiers. In Frontiers, it was very clear. They go to the place, and the bad guys live at the place, and the bad guys are going to do bad things to them because they're bad guys. In this, it seems that way, but I don't know. The bad guys didn't all seem to be on the same side. They didn't all seem to coordinate or get along or have a set plan. They seem to even sometimes work against each other. I was really confused by what was going on. In Frontiers, there's a family and there's a hierarchy and they're all working towards the same goal. In this, I couldn't tell if they had the same goal or what was going on a lot of the time.
I don't know that there was a goal. It's just a bunch of inbred maniacs.
Yeah.
So they're at the starts off. They're at a club, whatever, and the DJ starts spinning a record.
I love that opening. The opening is great. It just opens with this really obnoxious, in-your-face DJ screaming at the audience. That's right.
And then Bart, which I think Bart's probably the main character, he gets in a fight and gets a bottle broken over his head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they all leave the club and go to Eve's house. And basically Bart and Ty both want to have sex with Eve. So that's why the whole motivation to go to her house, I think.
Yeah, and they've got their little sort of running competition going of who's going to get her. And, meanwhile, again, it was I almost missed it at first, but their other friend, the guy who owns the car, the black guy, at first I thought he was dating Yasmin, but he's not. He has a girlfriend who's been calling him and talking to him, but he's trying to hook up with Yasmin anyway. Because they get it right off. None of these people are very good people. They're all kind of jerks. I guess Yasmin's okay, and you wonder why she hangs out with them, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think they were bad people. I mean, I think they were just young. I mean, I went to school, went to college. A lot of guys that act just like that. So
yeah, but I don't know. They weren't.
Not necessarily. not criminals, just like kind of asshole dudes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't mean they're terrible, but yeah, they're all kind of assholes. That's what I mean. I don't know. I don't care what other people do, but I just mean like I wouldn't cheat on my girlfriend, for instance.
Sure.
I'm not gonna say everybody that ever has is worse, and I don't want to hear. But I just mean and I mean you have to give Bart credit for like his relentless pursuit of anything with a vagina around him. And really, what gets like he doesn't deserve to get a bottle broken over his head, but he does deserve to like get punched in the face for what he does. Like he's coming on to this girl who's not interested, and he's like calling her ugly and a cunt and all this stuff. Like, what do you think is going to happen, dude? Like, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't get a bottle broken over your head, but yeah, I think he totally deserved to get his lights punched out.
Yeah, I mean it's.
But yeah, again, when you see this, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but a little bit in my earlier 20s, some of that club stuff, and you see guys going, they're all jacked up and stuff, and they're just running on their hormones and alcohol and stuff. They're like,
right.
Just want to get some, and when it's not working out, they get really frustrated and
just want to fight and fuck.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, Bart cracks me up. He's hilarious. His stories of the girls he's been with, and then his the way he and Joseph are together just cracks me up, because Joseph is like, well, I guess I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but anyway, they get out to this farmhouse, and it's kind of batshit crazy from the beginning.
Yeah, so Joseph is the caretaker,
right? And you see this other like weird, like really really skinny guy. I don't know what's going on with him, but you get to see him later on as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get there and you get to meet Joseph, and he's it's like he's coming on to Bart the whole time. Didn't you kind of feel like that? Because he wanted to go skinny dipping with him so bad.
And the other guy makes the joke too. He's like, he really likes you. Just seal the deal with him or something like that.
Because like, oh man, get the fuck away from me. I'm not gay and all this. Like, come on, Bart. Come on.
Yeah, and when you first see Joseph, he's got like that insane like grin on his face.
Yeah.
And he stands way too close to everybody. And like you said, he's tossing out the racial slurs to just identify them, but he's actually cheerful.
Yeah.
And I guess the tip-off is like Eve doesn't think it's weird at all. I guess she's used to him, right? Plus, again, I guess she's in on something. Like, I have no idea. Like you said, is there a plan? Like, did she think, I'll bring them and whatever happens, happens? But you have to think it is a timing issue because of the birth of the kid, right? So, because originally think, okay, it has something to do with the fact that Joseph's wife is pregnant and about to give birth to the kid any time. And then he tells the story, which gives us the title Sheitan, which is, what is it? It's sometimes translated as Satan, not always, but in Islam, it is an Islam word for like a devil or a demon. And he tells a story sort of about a guy that like makes a deal with the Sheitan to be invincible, but then it like drives him crazy, and he winds up raping his own sister to give birth to, I guess, what the child that will be the child of Satan or the demon. And the whole thing is like it'll be born at like the stroke of midnight when the clock hits 12 or something like that. And that's what eventually gets lined up here, is that it's Christmas Eve actually. So we're into our first holiday movie now that we're in December, because this does take place on Christmas Eve. And yeah, the whole thing is about how his wife is going to give birth around the same time. And then there's this other thing about like dolls.
Yeah, I just felt like that was kind of thrown in there. The dolls stuff, just more creepy stuff.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so at first, like I thought it tied into the plan, but I was like, wait a minute, does the doll have anything to do with the kid being born? Because they talk a few times about the only thing, the doll's almost finished, but it needs eyes. And that, spoilers, of course, is what eventually is going to happen, is that Bart gets his eyes torn out, and they use the eyes on the doll, which is just a doll for the baby? Like, I don't know. Like, it's so haphazard and weird. Like, because at first I thought, oh, okay, yeah, they're like crazy doll maker people, and they're going to kill these people and use their body parts to make real dolls. And there's only the eyes thing, really. Like, it doesn't get explored beyond that.
Yeah, I don't really know that it has much of a purpose. At a certain point, I just stopped asking questions because it was so much crazy shit going on.
Yeah, and the characters just really go with it for a lot of it. Like, they show up and things are so fucked up right off the bat. Joseph is insane, but then there's all these other people that like are like from the village or something, or maybe they work on the property. It's never clearly defined. They're just around.
Yeah,
and they're all really weird. and like Joseph's then introducing his niece to them, and the niece is all clingy and sexual and stuff.
Immediately.
Yeah, she's like grabbing
immediately
at him.
Sexual, yeah.
She's like grabbing at him and licking at him, and even a horn dog like Bart knows like probably not to get mixed up with her. And of course, it gets clear later on when she starts like jacking off the dog.
Yeah, what gave it away that she's probably not the best one to sleep with?
Yeah.
Man,
like,
what are you doing, man?
It's like immediately after like jacking off the dog, she like grabs for his crotch. Like, oh yeah, I don't really want to.
What are you doing? Just jacking that dog off.
Be a dog, sloppy seconds.
She just wants to fuck. She doesn't care what species it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all go to the hot springs, and you get to see the weird skinny guy naked from earlier, and he's fucking weird. I guess he's the product of the inbred.
Yeah, I guess so. They never really stated outright, but it's obviously is inbreeding, and the story that Joseph tells, I guess, is supposed to parallel it. So I guess that's supposed to mean that Joseph's wife is his sister. I guess is what they're saying.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Indirectly at least through the story. So yeah. Well, I mean, explain if he is like the father of some of these things. At least it explains why they defer to him and why he rages at them all the time. Joseph is crazy. He goes back and forth between this manic, like crazy happiness, and sometimes he can flip out and have an insane temper tantrum.
And he has an insane strength.
He throws him like 10 feet.
He throws the guy across the room.
Yeah.
I watched that a couple times in a row. I was like, God, he launched that guy.
Yeah.
And he breaks through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man at one point, too.
Yeah.
And
he's a very memorable character.
Oh, man. Yeah, he really sells the movie for me.
It makes the movie for sure.
He's...
So they first get not even up to the house. There's all these goats on the road, and he comes up to like milk the goats. And Eve is messed up right off because he like milks one of the goats just so she can get some of the milk. And I mean, credit to the actress for doing that, because you can't fake that, right?
What, did she just drink the milk right there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst or most disgusting thing in the world, but it is kind of odd. Not all actors are going to do it. Yeah, he squeezes some milk right out of the teat and into her mouth. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But I just mean, still, it's pretty weird. And Eve doesn't seem to think there's anything odd about Joseph, and yet it's one of those times, once again, where you're wondering why the characters aren't questioning the situation a little bit more. Like, they know Joseph's weird, and they often, comment on it.
Yeah.
But they don't really say anything beyond, like, this whole place is fucking weird. Like, the whole thing is like, okay, we'll go to the hot spring. Then all these people they don't know show up and jump in naked with them, and they're just supposed to roll with it, and they kind of do. Until Bart, gets hit in the face again because she's not just sexually crazy, but she's violent too. So they're doing what's that called? Like when they get on the shoulders. Isn't that called?
The crab fight or whatever.
Or chicken fight or something.
Chicken, yeah.
Yeah, chicken fight. They're doing that. Yeah, and she like smashes him across the face, and he's flipping out. And they're like, "Hey, you're ruining everybody's good time and stuff." Like okay, and then he goes back and he doesn't have any clothes because he was the one that didn't want to get in the water, and then he falls in the water with all his clothes on. So then later he's by like the fire. They're trying to get him some new clothes, and again everybody's sort of pretty chill about it.
Yeah,
and a bunch of weird stuff happens, and then when they have the meal, once again, people who don't live in the house are present at the meal, or I guess they do live in the house. Again, nobody questions it, and they're all singing, and they get all like jacked. They're all going crazy, but like. Our main characters join in.
Yeah.
Like, they don't seem to think it's weird, and they're not just doing it to be polite. They're like, oh, yeah, all right, okay, bang the table and sing the weird song. I'm like, really? And I think we said this, I think the same thing happens in Frontiers, and I said the same line. I'll say it again. You can always make any sort of eating seem disgusting if you get, like, big close-up, like, bunch of close-ups with the camera. So the whole thing is they're all eating whatever the meat is. And and, like, really disgusting close-ups of, like, the meat right part in their mouths and stuff, and yeah, and the only one that doesn't eat it is Yasmin. She says, like, this is making me sick. But the rest of them are like, it's good. And again, like, our main characters are doing this too, not just the weirdos from the house.
I think it's all a testament to the young male libido.
I suppose
it's like they're willing to go through all of this. Because there's one point where they both think they're going to sleep. Well, I think they both are sleeping with her, and then
Yeah, that's just before all hell really breaks loose. It's
it
like,
gets
and what's weird is she acts so reluctant. Like,
yeah.
she's all pulling away from them, and Bart even says, "Oh, I see what's going on. Like, I'm in the way. You want him, not me." But then when they start to make out of the couch, she's just like pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it's just leading to something. But then no, they're just making out on the couch, and then I don't even remember how it happens. But suddenly she's in the bedroom with him, and Bart comes back in, and then they're both making out with her, and it's like, okay, this three-way is going to happen, and then that's when all the stuff goes down.
Is it a
And
bunch
again,
of
is this part of her trap to let their guard down, or is she just, I don't know, operating on her own? It just seems odd.
It doesn't really seem orchestrated because it's just a bunch of random things that happen. But
Yeah.
they get broken up when Yasmin screams, and what is it, like a bed of some bugs?
Yeah, there's all these bugs are in the bed, and actually, again, this isn't part of the plan or anything. It makes Joseph really mad. Like, Joseph finds some of the guys that did it, and he like chases them out of the house. He's like yelling at them, going "Ah!" But then in his tirade, he then turns his anger on the main characters. Although I can't even remember what precipitated that. But at first, he's just raging about the other thing.
That's when he kills Ty or whatever his name is. I think.
Does he kill him?
I think so.
I know he like pounds his face in, but see, yeah. So this again, I was very unclear about how things sort of stood at the end of the movie. I wasn't sure if he was dead or not. They managed to get him into the car.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Lodge puts him in the car and drives off with him, so he may not be dead. I'm not
So
sure.
he might he's very badly hurt, but he might live.
And they just leave, never to be seen again, right?
Yeah. Again, it shows sort of what a scumbag he is, because he's like trying to cheat on his girlfriend because he supposedly has a thing for Yasmin, but he doesn't really care about Yasmin, because the whole thing is when they see Yasmin on the road, Bart is like, stop, and then he eventually does stop, and he goes, get out of the car. He's like, what? He's like, if you're going back for her, you go and get her, but I'm leaving.
Why is that? Why was he so reluctant to pick her up? Did I miss something?
All I can think of is he's just so freaked out and afraid that he just won't stop or go back for anything.
Yeah.
That's all I can figure.
It's hard for me to understand something like that because I don't, I would always stop and pick somebody up if it's that easy to do,
I know, and they're not even being pursued, really.
Right.
But he's just, yeah. I don't know. I felt like a bit more could have been done, like so the characters didn't get away, or at least more happened to them first.
Yeah.
Because really, the sequence of events towards the end just happens really quickly. So it's like the bugs thing happens. Then there's like a thing where Bart and the other guy, the Asian guy, go into a room to investigate, and one of the big life-size dolls is like dropped on them. Then they find out that's part of the prank too that these guys are playing, and I don't even remember what sets Joseph off, but because at first he's going after his own people, he's mad about the whole thing too. But then eventually he turns on them and then just starts pounding the shit out of Ty, tosses him across the room, and then starts beating him in his face.
He may have just been pissed that they wanted to leave. I don't really remember what happened there. But yeah. Anyway, he's going crazy and continues to go crazy for the rest of the movie.
But also early when they first get there and they're on the road with the goats, they like single out like the big sort of black goat. And I thought, oh, okay, that's cool because the black goat is often like associated with Satan in a lot of things. And I thought that was going to have like more meaning, like I was going to come back to something or something, but it doesn't really. I was hoping like the goat would play a role in some way or be brought up again, but it's not. Which I thought was kind of too bad.
I think that maybe Joseph thinks he is Satan, or thinks that he's giving, his wife his whatever sister wife is going to give birth to a demon or something. Oh
yeah, he definitely thinks that. It's never really made too clear. Like I said, the goat is sort of interesting foreshadowing, but I felt like they could have brought it back for something else, or I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the movie is just sort of all over the place in the last 20 minutes, and maybe they couldn't make a longer movie. It's a fairly short movie. It's about an hour and 25 minutes.
It didn't necessarily bother me, though. Normally that would bother me, but in the context of the crazy stuff going on.
It doesn't bother me, but I do feel like there's ways it could have been better. It's just I mean, like I don't think it's a complete mess at the end, but it is just really fast and chaotic.
So when they drive off and leave, and then Bart goes back to get Yasmin, and they head back to the house, and then and in between that period of time, we get to meet the wife.
Oh yeah, we get to see her give birth.
She comes out and basically just gives birth there, standing
in the hall. So that's a nice thing. I have to say, like, I guess I'm just so desensitized to violence, but I mean, I'd rather watch 100 gruesome deaths than one like normal childbirth.
Sure.
Birth is just so disgusting. I mean, they make it a little more disgusting for the sake of this movie,
right?
Sure. But here's a callback to what you were saying about like Bart with his stories about the girl. Like, I would never tell that story, man. I would never tell anybody that.
The one with the smelly vagina.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny.
If that ever happened to me, I would keep that buried. I would never tell anybody that I encountered that. I want everybody to think that everybody I slept with were 10s and they were, you know, beautiful all the time and perfect hygiene. I'm not going to say, yeah, she was pretty good, and then like I pulled down her pants and what? Like,
yeah.
I would take that to my grave. I would never share.
Oh right, no, it wasn't stinky. It was like flappy.
It might have been that too, but yeah, the whole thing was like she just had a repulsive vagina like in some way, and they're using all these weird cuts to like to like other imagery to give you an idea, which I'll admit was creative and kind of funny.
Yeah, I thought that story was funny, the way Bart was telling it. I think he told that story when they were waiting for her to come up to meet them in the bedroom.
Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, all I can think is like, if I have some sort of embarrassing sex story, I don't think I'll share it, especially if it's something kind of gross or something. I'd be like, no, all the sex I've ever had was amazing and everything went to plan and it was super great.
Well, I think his whole purpose for telling the story was how he knows that you can look at a woman's mouth and tell that she has a nice vagina.
Well, that's what he was saying. He was debunking that because that's what Ty said.
Oh, okay. He was debunking it. Okay.
They were looking at pictures of her in her room, and he said, "Look at her mouth." He said, "You can tell by her mouth." And the translation was like she has really fresh pussy or something. Which, again, that's not what he was saying. He was not saying Frey. I'm not sure what he was saying, but anyway,
maybe like.
I'm not even sure what he meant by fresh. Did he mean fresh like fresh, or did he mean fresh like dope?
Maybe like not. Overly used?
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe he meant like a pH fresh. Like I said, fresh. They say stuff like that. Like at one point they're like watching like a music video and they're really into it.
Oh man,
like, oh, this is so sick and dope and all this. I like the music video. It was an interesting like French hip hop video that had all sorts of weird like Islamic terrorist imagery in it.
Oh man, they get really into it. They're both singing along and dancing.
I'm thinking, I don't know if you could get away with showing that video over here. But yeah, they're really into it for sure. What's funny is like then she gets up because she sees a song she likes and she starts to dance. And once again, he thinks this is his moment, so he gets up and starts groping her, and she's like, "Get lost" or something. Yeah. So you think he's totally struck out by this point, and this is where he just says, "Oh, okay, I get it. Three's a crowd. You want to be with him," but then no, she. Yeah, Eve is just so bizarre to me. Like, I just struggled trying to understand what she was trying to accomplish, if anything. Like, did she care what happened to them? Because at the end, in the van shot, she's with the happy family, as if the plan all came together. But I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell if, like, that's specifically why she brought them, or if it was just, she didn't care what happened. I really couldn't figure Eve out. I mean, it does make a bit of sense for it to be a trap, because then you think, like, why would a pretty girl like Eve, like, hang out with this gang of losers?
Right.
So, I guess, but yeah, I was really confused by her character. Her dialogue is odd. She says and does weird things. Again, even if you know what she's supposedly trying to do, I found her really odd and hard to fathom. Couldn't really figure out what was going on.
Yeah, I guess we're just supposed to assume it had something to, like, she was sent out to that club to bring back some people to carry out whatever the ritual of the child being born.
Which just seemed to involve taking a guy's eyes out and putting it on a doll. I mean, isn't that all that really happens?
Yeah.
The other, I mean, he almost beats one guy to death, but it doesn't seem to serve any purpose, and then the rest of them get away. Although I guess Yasmin doesn't get away, so what's going to happen to her? Because she's with Bart when they get caught, right?
Mm-hmm. And then we get into this weird dream sequence.
Okay, yeah. So what happens is, once they're caught, and just before he says he's going to like take his eyes, we flash back to Bart when he gets hit with the bottle, and then he's stumbling outside the club, and then suddenly like things are different. It's not like what we saw before. Instead of like them all getting in the car and going with Eve doesn't come out of the club, and they decide to take him to the hospital. And you're thinking, oh, is this all in his head? Does this really happen? But once he gets to the hospital, things start going weird, and then you realize it's like a hallucination or a dream sequence, or the doctors are going to like help him. But suddenly the doctors, I think, are the same people that were in that, some of those townspeople or whatever the hell they were.
It starts off with back at the club when he walks outside after he gets hit with a bottle. So
yeah,
it's you start to think that, or at least I did, that it was.
At first you think, oh, this was
the whole thing was a dream.
Yeah, but once you get to the hospital, you realize that no, this is the hallucination because things get really fucked up in the hospital. And then, like, just weird stuff happens. Like, his friend starts yelling at him, telling him to, like, fuck off. He's like, we have to get out of here. They're all crazy in this hospital. And then he just has a moment where he gets to, like, make out with Yasmin because of, he just wants to, anybody, any girl. And, not that she isn't attractive or anything like that. And that's, no, I'll jump to that later. And then it just cuts to, like, he's, like, making out with, like, again, one of the crazies from the house. And then that pulls him back to reality where his eyes have been torn out by Joseph. But yeah, earlier on, just when they get out of the car to stop with the goats, he's just like pestering Yasmin. He's like, can't I? What is he saying? He's like, want to fool around or something? She's like, no. She's like, you're retarded. Go away. Again, she's being pretty patient about him, like aggressively coming on to her and propositioning. She's just brushing it off, like, oh, you're annoying.
It's kind of his lane, that he does that enough times, somebody's eventually going to give in.
Mm-hmm. Which is an interesting approach. I mean,
I've known guys like that.
To each their own, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. I don't try to hold myself for being that high up or above, but I mean, I'm all right. If a girl like rejects me in some way, then I'm just like, okay,
right.
Feelings hurt, move on. Not like, I don't think this is a salvageable situation. I can flip this around. Like, I don't think that way. I think, okay, struck out, move on. I think, if I try to go any further, I'm just going to make it worse. But he's just like, no, I'll wear her down. It's kind of his strategy.
That's when you make a drink and put a rohypnol in there.
Yeah. And that's another thing that he like freely sort of admits to, because in the flashback when he's talking about the girl in the tent, he says like, it was hard to get her to loosen up, so I got her totally drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. He said he did wind up having sex with her, right?
I don't know if he went through with it or not. I can't remember if he says he actually went through with it, or if I don't know if the story goes beyond that. So it's kind of left.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Go through with it.
He's such a degenerate.
He probably would have taken what he could get.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, and since he's like gleefully retelling this story without like a trace of shame or embarrassment. Like, he's just telling the story like it's, oh, this is sort of this funny thing that happened to me. And it disproves your theory about the mouth. Seems to be his main point. That's his main point, is he wants to tell him he's wrong. Just because she has a pretty mouth does not mean downstairs is pretty, is basically his point.
I can second that, by the way. But on Wikipedia, it says, slowly the visitors discovered that Joseph is a devil worshiper. And he has something sinister planned for them. I didn't ever really notice that.
They don't really ever discover anything. As we said, it's also chaotic and haphazard. That all they know is that Joseph is crazy for some reason. And because unlike a lot of these other movies, it doesn't have that sort of quiet moment where the bad guys talk about it, like even in Frontiers. In Frontiers, they have the thing where she's all, she's captured, pardon me, and she's put it, and they have that weird, crazy dinner together.
Right.
And he talks about the family. This, nothing like that happens. There's no exposition whatsoever from the bad guys. stuff just happens. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like this whole orchestrated plan. Like we're going to get these people here, and then we're going to do this.
Like they never have a moment even like where it's like, oh, Eve, you betrayed us, or
Right.
Eve, not but you betrayed us, or like you were a plant, you sucked us into this trap. Like there's never a revelation or moment like that. Everything just happens too quickly. They don't know what's going on. They don't know if Eve's in on it or if this has all just happened out of nowhere or if it was planned. Like it just all happens so chaotically, which is fine, I guess. In a way, maybe it's somewhat refreshing. We don't have the bad guys giving their monologue, but it does make it sort of confusing because we don't know what the plan was or what they wanted necessarily, or even what the end game seemed to be just to make a doll with eyes for this crazy devil baby, or what they think is a devil baby, because the devil worship and stuff, you just have to sort of work out. Not that it's impossible, but they don't explicitly say anything.
Right. I would believe that he was just a psychopath instead of a devil worshiper.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess those go hand in hand sometimes anyway.
Sure. Yeah, just the story he gives about it, you find out sort of parallels his own situation. It's like, clearly he thought he made some sort of deal with Sheitan or the devil or whatever like that, and he's got probably his sister wife pregnant, and now the timing is all lined up to have the baby at the stroke of midnight, and the baby will apparently be the devil's child or Antichrist, or whatever you want to call it. And what's weird is, like, they're not Eve's family. It's like the people that work for Eve's family. I can't remember what she said where her parents were, but like her parents aren't there and she doesn't have any siblings. So it's just her and Joseph, who was their caretaker, the caretaker's wife, and then whoever the hell those other people are. Like just people that I don't know if they work there or hang, just I don't know. It's weird. I can't remember what she said about her parents. She said something about her parents, but I don't remember it now. But they're not there.
Do you remember Monica Bellucci being in there?
No.
Apparently she has a cameo. And that's Vincent Cassell was married to her at the time, so.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they were both in the reverse of.
Maybe she was in the club. I mean, there were pretty women in the club. She could have been there, I suppose. She
wasn't the wife in a fat suit, was she?
That'd be pretty funny. I have no idea. That did not occur to me.
Yeah, because I don't think she's even credited. I'm aware of. Yeah, well. La Belle Vampiris is her character. I don't know who that is.
No, me neither. Does not ring a bell. There's also some like stuff that's like, I won't say unnecessary, but like there's a part where they're walking in the woods and they come across a snake, and I'm thinking, what kind of snake is out in like France on December 24th? Are there snakes that can do that?
No idea.
Anyway, and he gets really mad about him, and that's the first time we see Joseph get mad. And I guess it's just supposed to show that he's just as, because before all that, he's just smiling and grinning and being overly friendly. And I guess they're just trying to show that he also has like a crazy temper. I suppose is the point of that scene. And then they do like a weird thing. We're back at the house. The main characters, not the bad guys or whatever. They have like these. They like reenact the day's events with like a little puppet show, making fun of each other, including the snake scene. It's like, I'm Joseph. I'm crazy. I love snakes or something. I don't know. So yeah, they have nowhere else to be on like Christmas Eve, other than just go to this house of like crazies. Like even if they weren't crazies, like you feel kind of bad for these characters, like Yasmin. And although they do point out that most of them aren't even Christians, so Christmas is not necessarily a big deal to them, I guess, because that's the other thing that's kind of funny about the movie is like take out the craziness of the situation and the danger and everything like that. They just managed to, by one line, all fight amongst themselves once religion is introduced as a topic. It's actually pretty funny, right? Because Eve just asked, like, so you guys don't celebrate Christmas? She's like, no, I'm Muslim. And then they asked him the other one, and he's like, oh, well, I'm just an atheist. And then they just all start arguing, and then the black guy, who I think is also Muslim, gets really mad about them blaspheming and stuff like that. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? You're like cursing all the time and cheating on your girlfriend, and they all almost come to blows against each other. And none of the bad guys or Joseph or anybody saying anything. They're all sitting back and letting the friends like tear into each other over religion, which is pretty funny because I suppose that's kind of realistic in a way, you know. If you want to get people to argue, like politics and religion are pretty good ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an amusing scene. And that is the dinner scene, but it's the dinner scene before all hell breaks loose, so there's not much exposition given. There's no part where the bad guys say what their plan is, or because at this point they still don't realize they're in danger, even though they certainly know things are weird. I don't know. I feel like as far as movies like this go, it's missing some of those beats. And you could even give it credit for not having them because it makes it less obvious. It makes it a little more different. But I don't know. I kind of miss those beats in a way, just so I feel like I understand where people stand. In this, I don't know where anybody stands. I guess Joseph's the leader. I guess there's never a conversation like between Joseph and Eve either. There's never like an aside where he's like, "Oh, good job bringing these people here," or anything like that, or her saying like, "How soon till the baby comes?" You know, there's nothing like that either. Like, there's no asides, nothing. It's just all really fast and chaotic.
Yeah.
Which I don't know to hold against the movie or say it's a good thing. It does make it different. It doesn't have this, like, it's not structured like Frontiers is. And I suppose that's part of its charm. And its ending is so strange. Like, so at the end, nobody is actually dead at the end. We know that Ty is very severely hurt, but he's gotten away in the car with the other guy. Yasmin is captured along with Bart.
They don't ever show her again, do they?
No. And Bart isn't dead. He's just had his eyes taken out, although he's in for a bad time because now he's blind and he's surrounded by these people, so it's not going to end well for Bart, but we don't know what happens to him. And then it's just the end shot is the weird twisted family, including Eve together, like holding the baby and the doll with Bart's eyes. A few times that weird wild girl that was like jacking off the dog, like mishears his name and calls him Mark. A few times she's calling him Mark, and he's like, "It's Bart."
Whatever happens to her, she just kind of disappears.
Yeah.
After the fight at the hot spring.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think we see her again. And that's the other thing. Like, some of these characters appear and reappear. And it's weird, too. So, like, two of those characters from the hot spring and the weirdos, they were the ones that had played, like, the prank, I guess, making the big doll move. And that's when Bart and Ty chase them down on, like, motorbikes. And they get them to, like, crash into a wall. And then as soon as, like, people are like, "Hey, what's going on?" They're like, "Oh, we got to get out of here." And an ambulance actually comes to help them. Because at one point, Yasmin's out on the road trying to escape by herself, and she sees the ambulance. She's like, "Wait here, you need help."
Yeah.
But they go by because they're going to help them. It's weird because they're like chasing these guys down, and we don't really know what they plan to do. They're just saying, "Oh, I'm going to beat you up," and they're yelling all this stuff. But once they guys crash into the wall, they have no idea what to do. They're like, I guess that took care of our problem for us. They're hurt." And then again, there's a bystander there, near the building that crashed into, says, "What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, bail," and they just leave. It's just full of odd, anticlimactic things like that you don't usually see in movies.
Yeah.
It just adds to the quirkiness and weirdness, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a tight hour and a half, so not really a whole lot to talk about other than that.
Now, it's kind of end-loaded the same way that movie we did a couple years ago, May was. Like, May was only like an hour and 20 minutes. And, I mean, a lot of it is going, but, like, the stuff, like the weird stuff that everybody talked about in May, which is when she starts killing the people and taking their parts, that all sort of basically happens only in the last 20 minutes.
Right.
This is kind of the same thing. I mean, there's a lead-up, and we get to see the weirdness and stuff. But then when stuff starts happening, it happens very quickly, and then it's over.
Yeah, it gets broken up by that dream sequence, but then you realize that it wasn't a dream. He doesn't have any eyes, and then it just kind of ends.
Yeah.
So,
He's still alive, but he doesn't have eyes, and then it just goes, again, the shot of the family.
It throws that curveball at the end with the dream sequence, which I like. But I guess in hindsight, maybe it was tacked on just to maybe make the runtime longer. I don't know.
That said, it could have been a little longer because it cuts away in the doctor part and then just shows him trying to escape. They should have showed more doctor stuff because all we know is like the doctor starts saying some weird things, and then I think they resemble the people from the house.
Yeah.
And then it just like cuts to the next thing, and he's staggering out to the hallway, and he's like, "We got to go. The people are crazy here." And then his friend starts yelling at him, and then he makes out what he has to mean and turns into the other person, and it cuts away. Like they should have had the doctors like say some weird stuff or try to do something to his eyes or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then he's making out with Eve. Or, yeah, isn't that what he's kissing her? And then that's when you find out that...
it's actually Yasmin he's kissing in the,
oh, it is?
in the dream sequence. Because in the dream sequence, it's Yasmin and the other guy that take him to the hospital.
That's right.
And then he's just out in the hall, and then for no reason at all, they start making out because that's where his brain is at. But then, yeah, she turns into, I don't know, one of them in drag or something. And then he's pulled back to reality.
But this is I think a perfect one for us to end the series on, because it's crazy, and it does have a decent amount of gore and extreme stuff in it. It's not like the Pornographer we did, where it really wasn't much extreme going on at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a daytime drama with hardcore porno thrown in.
Yeah, it's too bad about the Pornographer, because, I mean, even when we do movies on here that we sometimes don't like, usually what we can say about this show is we've managed to cover movies that are almost always worth seeing. There's something there's something that you would say, okay, maybe I didn't even care for it, but it has some element. The Pornographer is not even really worth seeing, really. It's just sort of bland, so it's a bit of a letdown in that category. I mean, I don't know, sometimes when you're picking movies that you haven't seen before, you just you don't always luck out with a winner. But This movie definitely has some elements that make it worth seeing for sure. Although I felt it could have been a little more drawn out, show some more of that fucked up stuff. And I feel kind of conflicted because often I get upset with movies that like have clunky exposition. But I felt like this movie could have used a little exposition, a little bit of some narrative framing going on.
Yeah, leaves a lot up to the imagination.
Mm-hmm. I guess that was what they're going for. I know I've used the word chaos or chaotic a lot, and I guess that's fine because it does fit the sort of vibe or overall feel of the movie, is that it's a fairly chaotic movie. It's directed by director Kim Chaperon. He was pretty young when he did the movie. He would have only been like 26 years old when he did that, so that's kind of interesting for a fairly young director. It's his first movie. A couple of years ago, he did a movie called La Creme de la Creme, which I think actually has I think pornography is a big part of it. Well, I was trying to read about it, and it sounds closer to maybe what I would have wanted the Pornographer to be or something.
Yeah.
And it also has comedic elements to it. I don't know. It sounds kind of interesting. It came out in 2014. So, I don't know. That might be interesting to watch at some point. Couldn't find a lot of information on it, but it sounded kind of cool.
Yeah, I was looking at some stuff he did as well, and I don't know that I've seen any of it, but some of it does sound really interesting.
Yeah, the action takes place in a large French business school and tells the adventures of 3 students who decide to set up a prostitution network within the school.
Oh, wait, I've seen Dog Pound before. Let's see.
Oh, you've seen it? Yeah, that was his next movie after this. It is a remake of the British Borstal film Scum.
I've seen Scum too. It's really good. It's like a prison movie.
Yeah, that's what they mean by Borstal. I've heard, now that I look at the poster for Dog Pound, I've at least heard of it.
I've seen a lot of movies about like prison, so it all runs together for me.
Yeah,
that take place in prisons.
that's like That's like my father's favorite kind of movie. He likes prison stuff.
I don't know that I like it. It's usually pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the genre, really. Prison movies. Trying to think of any that I like. I mean, everybody loves Shawshank. That's like the number one. But Midnight Express is pretty good.
Yeah, it is. I love that one.
I'd like to see
That's
that again. I haven't seen that in a long time.
That's a perfect deterrent to smuggling drugs in a foreign country like that.
Yeah, and like that was like 1979, but even today it's still relevant because you always hear like stories about people that get caught in other countries and the crazy like laws they have. Places like Thailand and a lot of those Southeast Asian countries and some of the Middle Eastern countries.
Those places where heroin is made.
Yeah, and yet like you have marijuana there, and you'll like go to jail for like 30 years. It's crazy. So speaking of Thai prisons, yeah. So I always liked. It's kind of different because it's girls. Is Broke Down Palace.
I think I've seen it.
It's not bad. It's from I think '99. It's got a pretty young Kate Beckinsale and a blonde actress, well-known blonde. I can't think of her name.
Yeah, I've heard of it before. For sure.
Yeah, it's basically they're like tourists in Thailand and they get caught with like drugs or something and they go to this really harsh Thai prison.
Claire Danes?
Claire Danes, yeah. Back when I still really liked Claire Danes. As I've discussed, my window for her was short. But yeah, it's a pretty good movie. I can't even remember what happens in it. I own the soundtrack because in a weird quirk, my favorite band always has been the Canadian alternative band, mostly from the 90s, Moist. And their lead singer, David Usher, he's half Thai. His mother is Thai. And they have one of their singles, a song called Leave It Alone, which incidentally, if people are wondering, is my favorite song of all time ever, of all the zillions of songs out there. Leave It Alone is my favorite song ever. There's actually they did a Thai language version, and it appears on that soundtrack.
Oh, wow. Did he did it? Moist did it?
Yeah, they did it. What's funny though is if you buy the soundtrack, it's just the normal version of the song. But if you got they used to have back in the 90s, they had a fan club, and there were 3 or 4 CDs they released, special fan club CDs, and I have 3 of the 4 of them, and one of them has that on it, the Thai version of Leave It Alone. It's not 100% Thai. The chorus is still, or no, wait. Yeah, all I can remember is parts of it are still English, but it's pretty good. It's in Thai. It's funny, I played it for the Thai girl that I know, and I said, how's it sound? Does it sound good? Like, is this Thai good? Is his accent actually good? And she's like, oh, yeah, it is. I was like, okay. You never know. That's the other thing I always wanted to ask people is about names. This is kind of a tangent now, but a couple of weeks ago, when I was at the library for this seminar thing for to help with the program I'm in, where I tutor people in English and stuff like that. It was just a seminar where they just give you really obvious advice, really, about like ways to like be a better tutor, like body language and to be patient and kind and not condescending, pretty obvious stuff. But anyway, it was fine. At least I got to meet some people, and I met a girl. She was from India. And it was interesting because usually you think most of these people are here doing language, but I was one of the only language people in there. Like they teach all sorts of things. So even though she's from India, completely fluent in English, and I mean 100% completely, not like, and because I guess she was probably schooled in it growing up. Like English might as well be her language. But anyway, my point is she was there. She was as a tutor. She was teaching like economics stuff or something like that. But anyway, I was talking to her afterwards. She told me her name. And then she pointed out, and I'm glad she did. She said, it's actually quite a rare name in India. And I said, thank you for telling me this, because that's what I always want to know and ask. It's like, because you know how, like, if you're reading a book or watching a movie or show, it's like an English one, sometimes the main character will have a name, and it's clear that it's like a weird kind of name. Like, I don't know. It doesn't always have to be really weird, but even like a name like something like Sebastian. Like, how many Sebastians do you know? not that many. So the fact the character is named Sebastian usually means something. They're making a point that this character has. But every time I see an Asian movie and I hear or whatever, or a foreign movie, something, not all, but a lot of these Asian movies, I don't know if their name is special or if there's 10 million of them. That's what I always wonder sometimes when I hear a name sometimes in some of these movies. I'm just like, is that significant? Is that unique? Or is like there are 1,000 of them? And yeah, so I don't know. That's something I always wonder about.
I think they kind of dumb down their names for Western audiences. Or for Westerners in general.
Yeah, but I just mean if I'm watching the movie in its normal form, right, with their actual names.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing that I always think is kind of bullshit. Is like there is people from like places like China and the Middle East. They come over here and they pick English names, which I think is ridiculous. But I mean, I get it. They say it's easier in their day-to-day life. But I just think that makes us look like ignorant morons.
I agree.
But
I agree. I know it was this Chinese restaurant that I used to like to go to, and they just had given birth to a son, I think, and they had a big display up there, and his name was like 45 characters long, but then like in parentheses it was like John or something.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're cool with it, that's fine. My mother works at this. It's this thing called the community kitchen where they make meals for people to come in and eat, and some of the volunteers that are there are foreign people that have come, and she just adores this young Chinese family. She's always telling me about them, how much she loves them and stuff like that. This youngish couple, they're only a couple years older than me, and they have a little daughter, and I can't remember what their names are, but she only knows their like English names. And I even like pressed her to ask about them, but they totally prefer the English names, at least in there. And they named their daughter Iris. They didn't give her a Chinese name. Like they really wanted her to like be Canadian, and I guess that's good in a way. But I'm not one of those people that shakes my fist. It's like, assimilate, give up everything. Right. I don't know. So I'm really on the fence about it. So I mean, I don't want to tell people. I mean, if that's what they want to be called in a different place, that's fine. But I couldn't imagine. I mean, how weird would it be? Like I talk about maybe in a couple of years, I'd love to teach English in a place like Japan. I love Japan. I wouldn't go to Japan and tell everybody, because you guys can't say my name without putting O or at the end of it. How about I make it easy and just change my name to a Japanese name? They think I was crazy.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be like, here's your teacher, Akira. They look at me and they'd be like, what? They'd be like cultural appropriation or something. I don't know.
They definitely probably wouldn't appreciate it, but
over here it's norm to just like.
I think to them it may be easier to be called something else than have stupid Americans or stupid Canadians, whatever, butchering their name.
Yeah.
They would rather be called something that we can actually pronounce easily.
I'm just saying we can learn.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
But I mean, I do get it. The other thing, like when I met my Chinese girlfriend who I love so much, I don't know if I've ever said her name. It doesn't matter. Her name was Hai Ching, which is often a male name, but I think that's where her parents' heads were at. She's part of that generation, right? But anyway, still a lovely name for a girl too, Hai Ching. And I remember once I went to the hospital with her. We had to wait for fucking forever, of course. And it was, just sort of a routine thing, but she didn't have her own doctor. So she had to go to the hospital for things like this. And I said, yeah, I'll go with you. I'll wait. And when they called her, her name is Hai Ching, and I think I've said many times, this is something that I don't even feel that bad about because it's just not a sound we make. Her last name is XU, and we just don't make that sound in English. It's like Sua. It's kind of like Sua kind of thing, right? Like I'm still butchering and doing it wrong. But we were sitting there and we were sitting there for hours. It was like a really busy time. We were there for like 3-4 hours, and they were calling various people, and they called her, and she had no idea they called her. I told her because they came out and they said Hawking Zoo. That's what the nurse said. And I just sort of bumped her in the ribs. I was like, that's you. She's like, what? I was like, that's them trying to do your name. Honey.
Isn't that a common sound in their language?
Oh, yeah. All over the place.
Yeah, I see that surname a lot.
But yeah, I always feel bad about the X. The XU. It's like Sua. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's very close. It's very close to SH, but if you just go like sh, that's wrong. That's wrong. There's sort of like a hiss in between. I've looked it up a bunch of times. So as much as I say, yeah, I can learn. It is true that I couldn't even say my girlfriend's. I could get it like right every 1 out of 3 times. But yeah, she had no idea that was her name because they were like Hawking Zoo. That was their best shot at it.
Yikes.
Those X's and Q's. But just to help people out for some simple things, if you see a Q in a Chinese name, that's the CH sound. That's Ch. So that helps a little bit. Like she was from the city of Qingdao, spelled with a Q, because the Q is Ch. So that's one thing I can pass on.
Yeah, I have a lot of Indian clients that they do the same thing. You know, whatever their name is, they'll like shorten it to some Americanized version, just for us to call them.
Yeah, the best is all the ones that work in call centers, and then you call them, and they have their very strong Indian, like they speak English fine, but they have their very strong Indian accent. You know, you've been redirected to a call center across the world, and they're like, "This is Daniel." Yeah, sure it is. Sure, Daniel. How's it going, Daniel?
Is it supposed to make us feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones,
Please.
Right? You're a Jones, I can tell.
You sound like a Smith.
Smith.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I mean, I get both sides of it, and I get that. I mean, yeah, I know. I remember in school, you know, we had a kid transfer from Pakistan or somewhere. You know, everyone gives him shit about his name, and oh man, that's a weird fucking name. You know, just because that's kids being stupid. But
yeah,
you would think adults would have a little more sense than that. But
adults don't have sense about most things. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing the things that adults will still blurt out just because. I've talked about this before, but it's annoying. Like most people, even these rude people I'm talking about, if they meet somebody fat, they don't go, "Wow, are you ever fat?"
Mm-hmm.
They know not to do that. But in my early 20s, when I was in bad health and skinny, people would constantly point out that I was skinny.
Right.
Even a fucking nurse at the hospital once pointed out, and she didn't mean like, you need, some help. She just like said, I don't know. But to me, that's fucking rude. Like, I couldn't stand it. I was like, yeah, that's really fun that you're pointing out that I'm I look malnourished and unhealthy. Thank you. I wasn't aware. I'm so glad you pointed it out for me.
That's another cultural thing. I know, like in Spanish cultures or, Latin cultures, they definitely point that out. Like, they're even ironic about it. They're like, oh, damn, flaca.
I don't know. Just saying, I can't. It just seems like such a double standard. Like you would never blurt out that someone's fat, unless you're just like a complete clueless moron. But people constantly would blurt out. Or my sister, she was always tiny. They would talk about how tiny she was. It's really condescending, really, especially as she got older.
That's what stupid people do. Like, oh wow, you're tall. Oh wow, you're short, or whatever. Yeah. It's just a stupid person thing. Mm-hmm. They're too stupid to realize that's not appropriate.
Yeah. And like pointing it out as if like obviously the person knows what they are. This isn't news to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, you're tall. Oh shit, really? Oh,
I just you're right. I never thought about it, but 6'6" is pretty tall. I never considered that before.
I have to duck going under doorways. Yeah, I never knew.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I am different and I am tall.
Oh man, you are black. Gosh, your skin is dark.
Yeah, exactly. Most people they know not that. Not Joseph though.
Even that, I mean, it's not necessarily it's not a negative thing, but it's just like stating the obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, I guess it can be taken negatively, but not intended that way.
But the skinny thing, I took it pretty negative because the skinny is just not a compliment.
Right. Well,
I think it's just as bad as fat. Really, you want to be in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Skinny is another extreme. I don't know. But it got, I don't know, it's weird because it got, with the obsession of losing weight, I guess skinny sort of became kind of a compliment. When you had like supermodels like Kate Moss and stuff, it's like, it's skinny, and the one that said, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels or something. So they're really using skinny. But again, skinny is not attractive or healthy. You want, thin, fine. Thin, slim, svelte. Those are all words I can handle, but skinny seems too far. And I'm not saying I wasn't. There was a time where you could generally describe me as skinny. But I didn't need people to, and like you said, I didn't need people to tell me about it. I knew. I wasn't happy with it. I didn't want to take my shirt off in places, you know.
It's heroin chic.
Yeah, that was an actual term.
Yeah. So how was Parasite?
It was really good. I was hoping for it to be a bit more dark and twisted, but it does enough. And I get why they didn't go overboard with it. It's just a really watchable, arresting movie, is the best way of putting it. Like, I mean, he's a really good director, writer.
Park Chan-wook, is that who that is?
Yeah. Speaking of foreign names, I'm pretty sure I know, but I feel like if I guess, I'll get it wrong. But I think so.
I think that's the right way. Other people say it, the Park at the end, but it's like the surname goes in the front, right? Of Korean.
But this one's not Park. It's Bong Joon-ho.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah, see, that's why I had to double check. I was pretty sure
that is the director, though. That's the old boy guy.
Yeah, and he's just a hell of a director. But just everything. Well, no, he's not the Hellboy guy. He's the one that did like Memories of Murder, The Host, Snowpiercer. I still haven't seen Snowpiercer. Although that's a little bit different for him, but
did he do the one? It was one of the first episodes of the show.
Mother.
Mother, yeah.
Did he do Mother?
I believe it was him.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that's right. And Mother's really good. Yeah, so Snowpiercer and Okja are his last two, and they're a little different because they're not like fully Korean movies. Those are movies like with involvement from other countries and stuff.
Yeah, Okja's really
like fully. Instead of sorry?
Fully Korean.
Oh, it is? Okay, for some reason I didn't think it was. Okay.
No, I'm asking. I don't know.
Okay, but anyway, Parasite.
Parasite's Korean, right?
Yeah, Parasite is fully Korean.
Cool. I would rather him do that, honestly. But
it's really cool movie, though. I mean, it's pretty on the nose. It's pretty obvious about what's saying about like the class divide and the way the rich look down on the poor and the struggle of the poor and stuff. But it's pretty on the nose about that. But it's still really good. So it's just a really arresting, watchable movie that goes towards a pretty interesting conclusion. You're definitely hoping. And I mean, I spent like the last 40 minutes of the movie really having to pee, but I was like, I can't leave.
Oh man, I hate that.
I got through it because a lot of movies, I can usually pick a spot that's sort of like a downtime and be really quick and get back for that. Although the last time I did that, I totally screwed up. Yes, I'll get to some of that. I totally screwed up. It was the movie I just rewatched and we talked about a little was Us. I finally got to rewatch that again. I saw that in theater, and that time I thought I was picking the right moment to go pee, and I didn't. It was right after the family had escaped from the doppelgangers the first time.
Yeah.
And then the scene shifts to the other family. And
I love that. That's awesome scene.
And I basically came in halfway through that scene. So yeah, so I didn't get to see like the lead up to that. Just suddenly like a few of them were dead and there were others there. And that was a big revelation for me. And I'll give credit, at least either it's my memory or maybe there actually weren't total spoilers in the preview, in that spoilers for us, everybody, the revelation, because when I saw the previews for the movie Us, I just thought that family had doppelgangers. I didn't know it was a thing like everybody has.
Me too. Right?
So that kind of like really hit me hard because I came in late into the scene that suddenly the other family was half dead. Half of them were already dead and they were being attacked by their own doppelgangers. That was already going on. But anyway, I got to rewatch that. So I saw how that scene started. So that's a lot better. So that was a rare time where I picked the wrong moment.
Isn't that one of the guys from Tim and Eric?
Yeah, I think so.
The white dad?
Yeah, I think so. He looks just like it too. Like they didn't even like make him look different for it.
Yeah,
it's like like how you look. That's fine. Like
he's just like an asshole talking about his.
They didn't change his hair or anything. He looks exactly like he looks for that. It's pretty funny.
He's just talking about his boat the whole time and how awesome his boat is.
But yeah, just like you and I, we both prefer Us to Get Out. Although most people thought Get Out was like this great masterpiece, and Us is kind of a step down. I don't feel that way at all. I feel like, and I don't think Us is great. But I think Us is good, and the main thing we talk about is originality. I just don't get why people don't understand that Get Out is just so similar to stuff that already is out there. especially the Stepford Wives. It's so much like the Stepford Wives.
Oh, it's so much like a lot of things. I've seen that done a few times.
And once that movie I only thought like the first 25 minutes where everything's really vague was scary. Once things got going, I didn't find it scary at all. To me, the most atmospheric and greatest part about the movie is basically right in the intro when they're rolling the opening credits, when they're driving along the highway before they get stopped by the cop, and they have that cool, eerie music playing, which is actually like an old song that slaves would sing in the American South or whatever like that, and it's cool, and it translates to like "Brother Beware." And it's supposed to be like the ghost of the slaves. That's so good, but then the rest of the movie doesn't live up to it. I feel. I still enjoy the movie fine, and for the comedic part, I love his friend. His friend is hilarious. His friend, the TSA agent, but like the horror stuff that people like say is so good, I don't think is that good at all.
I didn't even really watch trailers for it, but I knew exactly what was going to happen.
Oh yeah, the trailers gave everything away for us.
But it's even like disturbing behavior.
They even show him in the chair all strapped down in the trailer. Like, don't show that for fuck's sake.
But Us is so much more ambitious. I thought it's so different than anything I've ever seen, and that's what I want.
Yeah, I think Us is maybe overly ambitious because I don't think it quite gets there. Sure. I think it kind of collapses in on itself, but it's still very enjoyable. And again, I'll use the same term I used for Parasite, very arresting and watchable. Like, and I think it's a better showing of what's his name? Jordan Peele's skills as a director, as a storyteller, because everything is laid out really effectively and well, and it shows his knowledge and love for horror because of all the homages to various movies in there. Even stuff like The Lost Boys. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of homages in there too.
It's a bit much when he flips the Goonies quote, but okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's good to know that Goonies resonated with black kids as much as it did with white kids. I guess that's a good thing to know. Although, if I want to piss the fanboys off, and this is I think why our former colleague James never liked me, is because he told me I had no soul because I said Goonies was super overrated and it never meant anything to me. That really upset him when I told him that.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Upon rewatching Goonies as an adult, it's I don't know, man. It's just not something. I don't have the nostalgia love for that like I do other things. No,
I don't either.
The nostalgia blindness.
No, and I don't either.
That film, it's just not to be held up the way it is. But with Us, I really think it's a really good film. Really, the only complaints I have is that it's like it's too many unanswered questions. It's too many things that I would like to know that weren't addressed, and it's lots of things that are kind of.
And is the twist necessary?
Oh, at the very end, yeah.
Because I feel like the twist really flips what the movie means in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're saying. The twist that she's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to believe, because the whole thing is there's the normal people up above, and then the tethered, who are like failed clones of the people. And what makes them wrong is that they don't have souls, right? So they're all weird and non-functional and stuff. But then we find out like one of the tethered came up and replaced a normal person. And even though she had a weird, awkward period where she didn't talk, she totally picked everything up and turned into a completely normal person. Meanwhile, the 9-year-old normal person among the tethered completely regressed and turned into one of them. Like, that seems so weird.
Well, and she also led the revolution, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I understand that's part of the justification for it. They're saying, because she was different. She was different from them. She did have the soul. She was a full person, so she was capable of it. But I mean, she was so much like them. Like, she had the voice that was obviously never used. I mean, isn't that what they're saying? Like, the fact is, like, most tethered can't even talk. And she just barely manages it.
And it just sounds really weird.
I give credit to the actress. She does a pretty good job of doing that. It is off-putting and scary.
Yeah, it is. But
the whole scene where they like sit down at the table is really great suspense, where she's like explaining stuff.
Yeah, I was so like, what the fuck is going on here? Because I avoided the trailers on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't know what was going to happen. I knew something with, the doppelganger, but I didn't really know what.
That's all I knew too, really. That's all I knew. As I said, the revelation that the doppelgangers like all lived underground, and that there was a whole that for every person in America there was a doppelganger counterpart.
Remember the one part where they showed like what the normal person was doing, and then the tethered would be doing the same thing.
Yeah,
just down there, just like it'd be like jumping on a trampoline, and the tether would just be jumping on the ground. Like it's stuff like that I feel like it's kind of. I mean, it doesn't
I guess
make
what they're
sense.
saying is there's some sort of telepathic link between them, right?
Yeah.
That they're always aware of what their counterpart is doing. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense, right? But where did she get the clothes? That's what I don't get. Because here's what's weird. And there's one part of them. I can't be remembering this wrong because I just watched the movie. Okay. So when she tells the story about, before we know the twist, when she tells the story about how she went up, apparently, supposedly, about how the switch happened or how the meeting happened, not the switch, right. How the meeting happened, right? And she's up at the carnival, she's down below in the fake carnival. But then some weird leering man gives her the shirt, just like she won the shirt. But it is the actual shirt. He has that shirt. How the hell did he have? Because it shows that they don't have the same clothing. But here, for whatever reason, he gives her the shirt, and it is the Thriller shirt, right?
Okay.
And yeah, but then when we get the revelation of the twist of being actually replaced, right? And she wakes up, she gets choked out, and then she wakes up and she's handcuffed to the bed down below.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird shot that's supposed to resonate so much is she sees, the counterpart that's replacing her standing in front of her, leering at her, but she's not wearing the shirt all of a sudden, and then she's pulling it on. It almost creates the sensation that we're seeing her, she's taken the shirt off her, and now she's put it on to replace her. But we already saw that she already had her own shirt. So what happened there? That seems like a really bizarre continuity error. Because it's supposed to be like a really, poignant and resonant shot. Right. Like, now it's complete. I'm putting on the shirt, and I'm going up. But she already had the fucking shirt. When she met her, and they were wearing the same clothes already. So that seems like a really bizarre continuity error. Like, they think it seems like it's supposed to be a really significant moment. She's putting on the shirt. She's replacing you. But she already had the goddamn shirt. So I have no idea what that was about. But anyway, it's definitely a cool movie. That I liked much more than Get Out. I don't know what he's working on now. I mean, he just did a movie. I mean, he can't do a movie every year, so maybe he needs some time to breathe and think.
Well, he's done some other stuff. I know he did that Twilight Zone, which I didn't really watch any.
I didn't watch any. I turned on to one, and it was probably the worst one I could have picked, because what's weird is it was a one that addresses it completely, because it's it has the show within the show. Like it had him hosting the show, and then it going off and it being part of the show. I can't even remember what was going on. But yeah, it was Jordan Peele hosting the show, but that was the show. And then the camera stopped rolling and people were talking to him and stuff. So it was one of those really meta ones. And I didn't even watch it to completion. I only watched it till the first commercial break, and then I went and watched something else. But yeah, I don't know. How many times have they tried to revive that show? You just can't replace the original. The original was so groundbreaking and awesome. They keep trying to recreate it, and you can't do it.
At least 2 more times since the original.
Yeah.
It's like once every decade they try to bring it back.
So the story about why Jordan Peele quit comedy and tried to become a serious filmmaker is pretty interesting. I mean, it makes sense. But sometimes some things are so on the nose that you figure that can't be real life. But I mean, I guess it is. So a few years ago, for people who don't know, they were making this movie called The Emoji Movie. Right? Which is just the kind of box office trash that we expect nowadays. Emojis. That's going to be a movie because people love that. And we'll get famous actors to play the emojis. Now, apparently, there's a shit emoji. I don't even live in this world, but there's a shit emoji. And people like to use it because they think it's cute. In fact, you can get stuffed animal versions of the shit emoji because people like that. And apparently, they weren't even there wasn't even auditions for it. they reached out to Jordan Peele themselves. That he didn't call them; they called him and said, "Hey, we're doing this movie where like the characters are emojis. We thought you would be great to be the shit emoji." Jordan Peele had a moment of an existential crisis, I assume, where he thought, "Is this what it's come to? I'm a comedian, and they think that this is the best use of me, is to be the shit emoji." But he didn't turn them down. He just said, "I need to think about this." And then while he was thinking about it, they called him and said, "Oh, never mind. We gave the role to Sir Patrick Stewart." And then he said, "Okay, I'm done with comedy. I'm going to try to be a real filmmaker. I never thought I could, but hell, I'm going to try." That's quite the epiphany and quite the way to arrive at an epiphany.
Well, if you're going to be compared to someone, Patrick Stewart, you can do worse. I mean, he's a pretty damn accomplished actor.
Well, I mean, it's the difference, though, right? It's the difference between where they were and how they were seen. The thing was, he's this funny, goofy comedian. They think, you can be the shit emoji. And then he thinks, what are the roles after that? Sir Patrick Stewart is Sir Patrick Stewart. It doesn't. He can play the shit emoji. It won't affect him in any way.
Right? It was also played for irony, right? Like, we've got this, Shakespearean actor who's
I'm
a piece
sure, yeah,
of shit.
and they thought that makes it even funnier. But
Right.
That's the point, right? It doesn't hurt Patrick Stewart's reputation one bit. It doesn't in any way tarnish what he's done. But Jordan Peele wasn't in that position. He was this comedian that had had a fairly successful sketch show, and then he'd done some small roles in some movies, and then he did that comedy movie. I guess what was it? Keanu came out before this, and he thought, I'm sure what he thought. I mean, I'm just reading into it. Is like, what's my career going to be at this point if I take the shit emoji role? Is that all there is ever going to be for me? Because the whole thing was he'd always wanted to do serious movies, and he always wanted to do horror. But he got into comedy, and he was good at it. And it wasn't like he hated it or anything like that. But then he also thought, this will probably keep me from being able to become a serious filmmaker, because so often that's what happens even with the best comedians, right? Is they get pigeonholed, and that's all that's expected of them. And I guess it took this moment for him just to think, okay, I'm going to go for it. It worked out because, I mean, I don't think I'm not as high on him as some people. Some people think, he's like among the best new directors out there today. I don't know. Maybe he could be. I think he has potential.
Yeah.
But, I mean, people are like talking like Get Out, like raise the profile of horror and stuff. I don't believe that for a goddamn second.
I mean, his sophomore effort was good, so let's see what he's got. Definitely would be on my radar.
I see somebody asked about Dr. Sleep. We talked about before. I still haven't read it or seen it. I know you saw it and you thought it was pretty good. I don't know if I'll ever get around to it, because the thing was, in 2013 when Dr. Sleep was released as a book, I was kind of not excited because I never liked this. I never liked The Shining that much, the movie or the book, which I've seen both. I've seen the movie, I've read the book. But I wouldn't say I was excited about Dr. Sleep, but I was kind of going to use it as an excuse to get back into Stephen King in a way, I think is what it was. I thought, okay, here's a good entry point. I haven't read Stephen King or anything new by Stephen King in a few years. I'm going to read this. And then I didn't. So now 6 years have passed and the movie came out, and I'm just like, so I don't know. I guess I'll watch it at some point, but it's not a priority. And I don't know. I hope it's good. I know you liked it, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it was better than I was expecting, and if it wouldn't have been for the director, I probably wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't even gotten a movie if it hadn't done so well, I'm assuming.
Sure.
It's kind of a little renaissance for Stephen King movie-wise.
I don't think it did very well, though. It's a really bad time to release it when they put it out.
Really?
After Halloween, they put it out after Halloween, so I would think it probably would have been better to go around Halloween.
I guess I don't know enough about it to know if I'd associate with. I would never associate, say, the one before it with Halloween, The Shining. I would never.
No, I'm not saying Halloween. I'm just saying it may play better when a time people want to see horror movies, even though it's not really even a horror movie.
I bet it's not that horror.
It's you know how people are. They're very cyclical about, we did that holiday, now we're on to Christmas or whatever.
Very true.
It's
I mean, I'm cyclical in my own way. In fact, I'm much more picky about that kind of stuff. There's certain movies that I'll only watch at certain times of year.
Yeah.
So I understand that. I'm super picky about the conditions of movies I watch. And the Christmas is the easiest one and the weirdest one in a way because I always talk about like how I need to watch a movie start to finish. I don't want to be interrupted. I hate it when I'm interrupted. And obviously I want to see the movie in its, full pure form. But with Christmas movies, I have no interest in ever buying even the best Christmas movie and owning it on Blu-ray, a beautiful set of, It's a Wonderful Life. I have no interest in that. I only want to watch it or what I feel is organically, which is on TV with stupid commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I feel about Christmas movies. And there's always about 6 or 7, and maybe we'll talk about this in greater detail later in the month as we get closer to Christmas. But there's 6 or 7 I have to watch every year. And I can't watch them too early either. Like December 3rd, it's still too early for me for most of them. Maybe December 10th or so, I'll get into it. But even then, it's the same thing with Halloween. The best ones have to be the closest to Christmas. I'll watch the peripheral ones, like, I don't know, on December, maybe I can watch Jingle All the Way in a week or two, because that's not a big important one. The big important ones for me, they have to be really close to the lead up to Christmas, or it doesn't feel right. So I'm very particular about that kind of thing. And I'm not a person that can watch Christmas movies at a different time of year.
No, me either.
I will never watch them. Like Home Alone comes on all the time, like around. At least Home Alone 2 does. Home Alone, that's weird. I don't know if this has happened with the channels you get. The channels I get, Home Alone is always on Christmas, but Home Alone 2 seems to show up all the fucking time, even though it's also a Christmas movie. That's just my experience. It might be different for other people, but that's what I've noticed. I've noticed that Home Alone 2 will play pretty much any time of year.
It's been a couple of years since I've had standard cable.
Yeah, that's the one time I'm kind of glad to have standard cable because I want to watch Christmas movies. I don't want to stream any Christmas movie ever. I don't want to put on a Blu-ray of a Christmas movie. I just don't. It doesn't work for me.
I own all the ones that I have to watch every year only because when I want to sit down and watch it, it may or may not be on.
I know
somewhere. So
that's the risk. Like for one thing I do manage to watch because I own the DVD of it because it doesn't come on anymore. Is if people have long memories and heard me blather about Christmas movies, one of my absolute favorite Christmas movies, a little known Disney Christmas movie from the mid '80s that nobody else knows called One Magic Christmas from '85. It's super depressing, but I love it. Just hits all the right notes for me. But anyway, because it was a Canadian production, shot in Southern Ontario, used a lot of Canadian actors, and was also the screen debut of Sarah Polley, although she's not important in it. She only has one scene. She's like 4 years old. But anyway, but because of that, it would often play on like Canadian stations like CBC or CTV when I was growing up. So I would always watch it. But in the last 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years, it has completely disappeared from programming. So I'm glad I own the DVD, so I guess I could work it out on that way. But I would be much happier to watch it on there. Because, CBC always does, Christmas movies. The ones that you can expect are, A Christmas Story and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I love those. But I need to watch them. Watch that.
Yeah, I'm not in the mood for Christmas at all yet. I don't know what's wrong with me. Normally I am by this time, but I don't know. It's been kind of a fucked up year. I'm just not in the mood, man. I don't want to do any of that bullshit.
Yeah. No,
we finally.
This is an off year for me too, because I usually go by my sister's. She alternates where she is for Christmas, and last year she was with my family, so this year she'll be in Saskatchewan with her husband's family. I can see your messages, Bezel. Hello, happy holidays. Don't worry, I'm sure we'll talk well before the holidays. I'm not sure what his quote about books means, though. But yes, reading is cool.
I think it was maybe when we were talking about Dr. Sleep, I just noticed he had been commenting.
Reading is cool, that's for sure. Give a hoot, read a book.
Yeah, well, let's say I just go through my list here. I do like, since we're in the season,
Sure.
What was the Jingle All the Way? I do like that because of how stupid it is.
Yeah, I watch it. It's not one of my big important ones, but I watch it and it's always on.
My big important ones are Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. That's my number one.
Yeah.
And I got to do A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
I like It's a Wonderful Life, but I don't always watch it every year. And,
it's long. On TV, it's 15 hours long, so I don't always get it either. Most Christmases, I only watch parts of it.
Yeah. But I like Home Alone, Home Alone 2. We usually watch those. around the same time.
Yeah.
And what else? That's about it, for my standards.
My absolute needs that isn't on there is the 1951 A Christmas Carol, the one with Alistair Sim. To me, that is the best version. I like lots of, A Christmas Carol has been done many times, and I like most versions. I hate the 1984 version with George C. Scott. He's the worst Scrooge I've ever seen. Oh my God, he's terrible. I remember I was arguing with somebody not too lately about George C. Scott. Might have been Lauren. I don't know, but because I think he said he's a great actor, and I think he's a shit actor. But anyway, and a lot of it is maybe biased because of how much I hate his performance as Scrooge. God, I hate his Scrooge. Terrible. But anyway, I like the other version. The 1935 version is short but very good. But then there's some parodies. Oh, Scrooged with big one for me. But as far as the actual straight versions of A Christmas Carol, the 1951 Alistair Sim, which sometimes was called Scrooge. I think that was his original title in England. What's interesting about that is, depending upon what channels you get, you can watch that in black and white or in color, because sometimes they show the colorized version, because that's one of the movies that got colorized later. And I don't really mind the color, but the black and white is great for the 35 version, because it's the scariest one, because that whole opening thing before Marley shows up, that's really freaky in the 35 one with the bells ringing and stuff and the wind blowing. It's really, really atmospheric and good. I can't remember who's in that or who directed it. It's really short. It's only 70 minutes long, but it's good.
Let me tell you, two of my favorite Christmas carols. I like the Muppets, and I like Mickey's Christmas Carol too.
Yeah, those are awesome and really deeply embedded, because those are really early memories for me. I saw them when well, especially the Mickey's Christmas one, because I was fairly young when the Muppet one came out, but I was super young around when they were showing the Mickey one. Well, actually, the Mickey one came out the year I was born, but I said this before when I was talking about my love of the Disney Duck comics and stuff. For so many years when I was a kid, I thought that Scrooge McDuck's first appearance was that. I thought they just made him up. I thought they just made him up for the sake of having a Christmas Carol, not parody or whatever. And then I thought, then the DuckTales spun off him.
Exactly. I thought the same thing.
But no, Scrooge McDuck was created way back in the goddamn 40s by Carl Barks. Although, incidentally, his first story is a Christmas story. I guess maybe that's why they do it. And like a lot of things, it has a lot of media. It's a case of early installment weirdness, where he's much meaner and stuff than he would be in later appearances. He's also drawn a bit differently. He looks like he has big whiskers on his face. It was weird. But that's what is it, A Night on Bear Mountain or something like that? But that's his first appearance. I still don't own that collection. And then over the years, Barks developed him and made him the cooler character that we know and love today. I'm forever buying those collections. They're so great. They're put out by Fantagraphics. They're beautiful. I almost bought another one the other day. But anyway, yeah. So, but yeah, like you said, there's lots of good versions of Christmas Carol. As I said before, I don't like the Flintstones. Never liked the Flintstones. But the Flintstones Christmas Carol, I think from '94, is the only Flintstones I like. It's not bad.
The live action?
No, God, no.
Oh.
No, it's the animated show. What's funny is it's not the only Flintstones Christmas special. There's another one that predates it, but this one is specifically Christmas Carol, and it's interesting in the way they do it, because what it is they're doing a production of it. They're doing a play, and Fred is playing Scrooge, and the whole thing is how he's getting too deeply into the role and he's ignoring the people around him. It's not bad.
I was never the biggest Flintstones.
I don't care for it at all, but that's the only Flintstones I really like.
It was, even when I was a kid, I was like, this is a little too stupid for me.
Yeah, I've never been into Hanna-Barbera, and we will eventually have that long talked about episode where we talk about that era of animation, because I do have good things to say about it. It's not all bad, but that's kind of was the stock in trade for that era of animation, right before things. Well, when things were much lesser quality. Sort of a weird middle period is what I'll say, for people who don't know. Because animation had a very high standard when it first started in the 30s and 40s. That's why it's called the Golden Age, and it wasn't in some ways, it sort of mirrors like American comic books when we talk about the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age. In some ways, the animation is similar in the approach that it had. In that, what would have been the Silver Age was sort of just cheap and aimed at children and not taken too seriously. But anyway, we'll do a whole thing on that but we'll save that for another time.
Oh yeah, there is some Hanna-Barbera that I like, but it's not a whole lot.
And I have to say, and I've said this before, I hate Yogi the Bear so much, but every once in a while, I will watch the Yogi's First Christmas, which came out I think in 1980, sort of to punish myself because it's awful. It's even worse than most Yogi the Bear, and has one of the worst characters ever, who I think who is one of those voices that Hanna-Barbera would use all throughout the 80s, including in I think he's like a supporting character in one of the terrible Scooby-Doo shows. Yeah. Remember where Scooby-Doo, where they got rid of most of the cast, and it was just him, Scooby, and Daphne? But then there's a version, this might have been Ghosts of Scooby-Doo or 13 Ghosts, where they added a little kid whose name is like Flim Flam. Same voice, same exact voice. The whole thing is in Yogi's First Christmas. They're all staying at this like lodge, and the owner of the lodge is this nice old woman, but she has like a nephew who's this spoiled brat, and the kid's in it, and it's the worst voice. Oh my god, I don't want to, like, it just laser beams through my brain. I don't know. I'm so at a loss that I can't even come up with a good simile. So sorry for that. I'm usually a little more eloquent in my descriptions. But yeah, so every once in a while when that's on, I hate it, but I kind of make myself watch it anyway. It's weird. It's really weird.
Let's see. I like, where was it? Bernstein Bears.
I've never seen it. Isn't that weird that I've never seen it?
They're Berenstain Bears.
Yeah, I've recently found that out too. We could do a whole thing about how, like, ever since like Jan and Stan moved on and their son or whoever took over, how those books have gotten insane.
Yeah.
And really religious.
I've always said Stein. Have you always said Stein?
No, I said Berenstein, I guess, but
Steen,
it's more.
Yeah.
But it's somewhere in between. It's like Berenstain.
It's Stain, yeah.
Yeah, it's really awkward sound, and it's not just like Baron. It's like Baron. Like I don't know. It's really awkward the actual way you're supposed to say it, and I don't like it. What's funny is that I never watched any of it, but one of my favorite Christmas books is that it's a book about how Papa Bear is trying to get the perfect tree, and he like nearly kills himself on a mountain. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that one. I like where was it?
I mean, just like with the Halloween, I feel like Charlie Brown just knocks it out of the park. The Charlie Brown Christmas special is just so incredible.
Did you ever see Captain Caveman? Any of that stuff?
See, no. Like, I know that's a Hanna-Barbera thing, but I don't think I ever had opportunity to see that.
I like that.
You're not naming Christmas specials now. You're just saying
I'm just looking at I'm just looking at characters that I like Jabberjaw.
Yeah, see, I never had the opportunity to see these. The only Hanna-Barbera that came on TV for me was like the Scooby-Doo, sometimes Yogi Bear. What else is in there? Flintstones. That was the big Flintstones, and the Jetsons were big ones. And sometimes they do that Wacky Races show.
Yeah.
But everything else, like, no. Like there's like a purple gorilla one. Like I don't know.
Oh, Grape Ape.
Yeah. See, these are things I only found out later on the internet.
Yeah, I like Grape Ape.
Never ever seen. I'll have to try to watch some of it on YouTube or something just to see what it's like.
Of course, the Smurfs, but then they also did the Snorks, which is I guess they ripped off their own show.
Yeah, an underwater version. I didn't know that Smurfs was Hanna-Barbera, actually.
I didn't either, but it's listed in this list.
Anyway, I did watch the Smurfs. I watched the Smurfs back when it was a Saturday morning cartoon. It was one of the ones that I just watched because I was already up. It wasn't one I like specifically, I watched the ABC or whatever morning lineup, and the Smurfs were part of it. They weren't one I really liked that much, but I sat through it to get to the other shows.
I can't find the name of it, but it was this, it was like a ripoff of Tom and Jerry, except it was two mice and a really stupid cat. That was my favorite.
Never saw Tom and Jerry. Isn't that weird? Tom and Jerry's so big and famous, but I can't remember ever having the opportunity to watch it on TV. Like, I only knew about it through other media. I know what it is, but I've never had the opportunity to actually watch it.
I watched a lot of Tom and Jerry.
I mean, it's always praised as a really good cartoon of that era. You know, a very simplistic one, but good at what it's doing. Like really good physical humor and action and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know. For stuff like that, I guess it was the Warner Brothers stuff, you know, Bugs Bunny and stuff that I watched. The Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looney Tunes stuff. I love all that. I wasn't really, like, I liked all that stuff. I mean, there was some of it I thought was a little stupid, but.
Oh, I mean, I would have watched it. It wasn't like, because we've had this conversation before. There were tons of cartoons that even as a child, I really disliked and thought were stupid, and I still just watched them. There were quite a few.
I don't think I saw the He-Man Christmas special, Joe Bob.
I saw it years later, like on the internet. I didn't actually see it back in the day. It really is something. It's like a crossover with It's like, I think it's the only crossover they actually ever did with She-Ra, except for like the first episodes of She-Ra. Yeah. I watched She-Ra way more than I watched He-Man. Make of that what you will.
I didn't watch He-Man very much.
Well, it was as generic as the show could get, man. And they were just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Well, it was all made to sell figures, right?
Yeah. We talked about this before, too. Like, especially the 80s was all about selling toys. And still some good came out of it. I really love Transformers, even though I've said a lot of it doesn't hold up. But some of it still does. Some of it, it's not a good ratio. It's maybe only 1 in every 5 episodes. But there's still some really good episodes. And now G.I. Joe was okay, although in retrospect, it's really ridiculous when you think about like these two organizations at war with each other and no one ever dies.
Just bullets everywhere.
Yeah. Just no one ever dies. And they had like the most massive, crazy military machines. And they were some of my favorite toys after Transformers were the G.I. Joe vehicles. Yeah. I loved them. Every year I wanted those for Christmas. Like Christmas of '92, which I remember really well because it's one we actually videotaped some of. Like I bought like 80% of my toys were like G.I. Joe stuff because I was obsessed with those vehicles. I used to wonder like why the military didn't actually just make those.
Is that when they had like hovercraft and stuff?
They had everything, man. Like anything you could think of, they had. Like by this time, they were past the basic stuff. Yeah. They had like just crazy imaginative stuff, and I own some really good ones. They're still in my house, but they're all, busted up, of course.
It would be like zip lines and things like that. And I know there was this weird one that was like it had like a saw blade on it that the guy would ride in. And,
I remember that.
Yeah. I still have that somewhere.
I have a couple of the classic ones, too. I have the Hiss. I mean, that's classic, the Cobra Hiss. With the Cobra Hiss driver. His figure is worth a lot. But as I've said many times, same thing with Transformers. I did not take good care of those toys. They're scattered and broken and lost, and it's too bad. I had some really good ones. I mean, I really liked them. I don't know. I was a kid. You know how it is. Kids, you think you're careful and you're not.
Yeah.
I guess it's fine. I got the enjoyment out of them. It's better than just saying, oh, now I can put them on display as a joyless adult.
What I really collected was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I had a pretty huge collection of those, and just.
Yeah, I have something that's probably worth something that my grandfather gave me because it was like a special case for them. Like I bet you that's worth a lot in the collector's market.
Mm-hmm. I had a case. I don't know if it was probably not as nice as what you're talking about, but
it was about this big. I don't know.
Like a briefcase type thing, almost.
Yeah, almost, but it was like upright. It like stood up.
Yeah.
And I think you opened it from the front. I still have it. I'll take a look at it. But when I got that, it was funny. I don't know how my grandfather got it, but he got it with like an assortment of a few other things. We'll note. And one of the toys was the original Michelangelo, like from the very first run. But he was missing his arm at this part. But still, an original Michelangelo before all the gimmicks, before everything, just the original one where they had that weird. Weird expression on their face.
Oh yeah,
it's funny.
I had all of them. I didn't have the April because I didn't want her. She was stupid. But I had all the other ones from that. I never had the big Krang. Where Krang you could actually take Krang out. I've always wanted it. I never had it though.
Ryan had the Technodrome.
That's awesome. I never had that either. I had
I wonder if he has that with him. I wonder if that's at his parents' house or if he lets his kids play with it now.
Oh man, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't.
But they got really like crazy. We had Baxter Stockman, and then
Yeah, we have Baxter Stockman.
Osaki Yojimbo,
Yep.
and then they got even more crazy. They had like the crocodile guy. I forget his name.
Leatherface.
Yeah.
One of
And
my
then,
personal favorites, Slash, the Crazy Turtle.
Yeah.
Love Slash.
As time went on, they got more and more crazy, and I quit collecting after a few years. But
yeah. What's weird is how particular I was about the Transformers, because they were my favorite toys, right? But once Generation 1 was over, and they were trying to come up with new things, and the show was over. Remember how in the early 90s, actually started the late 80s, but early 90s, they did the Headmaster stuff? And then after the Headmasters, they did Target Masters? I hated that at the time and wouldn't get them and just moved on from them. Nowadays, I wish I had them. I look at them on the internet all the time. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's funny. Taste change.
I know.
I guess because it's been so long. Because at the time, it just seemed like, oh, the originals were the classic, and now we're just moving on to the new stuff. But now sometimes when the new stuff fails, it makes it all the more interesting and valuable. Like Ryan actually it's a really interesting figure to me that probably didn't mean anything to us at the time, a character named Skyquake. He was one of the group of not Predacons, but Predators, which were a group of Decepticon jets. Again, these only existed in toys. They didn't exist in other media, although eventually they'd find their ways into cameos in the comics and stuff like that. And they were all like crazy, weird neon colors.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but I'm kind of obsessed with them, and I would sort of kill to have them. And I don't know why. And they were like circa 92. And they were weird, like neon jets, and I don't know. For some reason, I think they're awesome, and I don't know why. But back in that era, when that stuff was coming out, that was when I disengaged from Transformers toys. It's like, I don't like this stuff. I don't like what they're doing now. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, they all got more extreme, trying to sell more products.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Christmas. I'm trying to think. I think I named the essentials for me. But yeah, the specials being the same thing as Halloween, is that it would be Garfield and Charlie Brown specials. Those are the big ones. But as you said, some of those Christmas Carol parodies, or whatever you want to call them. Although Flintstones is not a must-have, but if I see it, I'll watch it because it's the only time I can actually stand the Flintstones. But yeah, the big ones. One Magic Christmas, which never comes on TV anymore, so I have to do it myself. But then the others I can usually finagle. As I said, I love It's a Wonderful Life, but it's so long on TV. You have to dedicate basically a whole night to it. So usually I only watch parts of it here and there. I kind of cobble it together because it comes on multiple times, right? So sometimes I'll sort of watch it by section as it comes on. But yeah, the big ones, as I said, were pretty much the same as you, but just with a few other added things, like the 1951 A Christmas Carol. Love that magical movie. And I'm trying to think of like the most recent movie. What's weird is like I don't hate it, but like in the last few years, the 2003 Will Ferrell movie Elf has become somewhat of a classic, and I guess there's people of their own generation that remember it. But I'm not of that generation, and I don't care about it at all, or even like it a little bit. I don't like it. Like, I don't think it's bad. Like, I think Will Ferrell's done way worse stuff, but I don't have any affection for that movie, and I don't care. And I don't even watch it when it comes on. Like, that's one I actively ignore.
I like it for what it is.
I don't know. I really don't like. Is that James Caan?
Yeah.
He just seems so out of place.
And Peter Dinklage before Game of Thrones.
Yeah. What's weird is like it's the kind of role he wouldn't take now, but within the role, the whole point is he's fighting against being typecast. It's really weird because the whole thing is he's actually calling him an elf, and he's like, no, I'm like a serious, normal person. But I'm like, I think years later he realized that was part of the problem. Even talking about it in the role, it was the wrong thing to do. It's like, I don't want to take a role where the whole thing is everybody's talking about how I'm a little person.
They comment every fucking episode of Game of Thrones about how he's a dwarf.
Yeah, but I guess the difference is that's a weird fantasy setting that's basically on par with kind of like a medieval timeline where no one has any sensitivity whatsoever, right?
Hmm.
I mean, if you're a woman in Game of Thrones, you're just like something to bang, right? So But I don't think it's wrong for women to take that role. They're accepting that that's the world that it is. And the whole point is like, look how good and strong these women characters are anyway. The whole perception of them is wrong. So I don't think there's any contradiction in Peter Dinklage taking that role.
Yeah. He gained a lot of popularity with that show, and I think he's got a certain amount of clout that he has to uphold, which is why he's probably not going to work very much because,
Sure.
I mean, nobody's going to cast him as like a lead and not mention the fact that he's a little person. I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect with that. But
no, but
you're
I mean,
to be a leading man, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's different from like a race thing and stuff. I mean, whether you like it or not, little people are rare.
Right.
It'd be one thing if there was like a country of little people or something, but they're not. Little people are just come from every country. They're all races and ethnicities and their backgrounds, but they're also super rare. Like, if you live some places, you never see them. I never see them. There aren't any. I don't think there's any in Halifax.
Really? I don't know that. Yeah.
I can't even remember the last time I saw a little person.
I've seen little people.
I've seen them, but
it's been a while. Yeah.
See them very. So my only point is it's rare, so it would have to be commented on.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, it does change sort of some things about your life. There's certain things that a little person simply can't do. Not to come down hard, but that's, it's kind of the same thing as, I don't think I'm disparaging people in wheelchairs by saying they can't run up the stairs. They just can't. And there's things that little people can't do. But anyway, so yeah, I guess it's a tough position to be in. There's not too many roles he can take where it's not like a major part of the character. And if it's not, it's kind of like a quirk. It's like, okay, this wasn't needed for the character, but it's obviously has to be commented on because it's different and strange. And there, I used the word strange when I shouldn't have because I didn't mean it. But you know what I mean? It's not typical is all I mean. But anyway, speaking of his recent work, he has a very funny cameo as himself in the Between Two Ferns movie with Zach Galifianakis. That might be the best scene in the movie, probably, when they go to his house to interview him. I won't give that away, but it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, in his eyes, he wants everyone to not see a little person, just see an actor. And as great as that would be, I mean, it's hard. I mean, like when I watched Game of Thrones, my thought wasn't, oh shit, he's a dwarf. Every time I looked at the screen, I got to love his character. He's probably my favorite character in the entire show. But I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, you can't. It's unfortunate. I was watching this reality show. I won't get into what it was about, but it was stupid. Anyway, this girl's brother, who was hardly on the show at all, but he was a little person. And not only was he a little person, but his name was Ludwig. It's like, God damn, could you make it even worse?
See, as Anglophones, we know Ludwig is not a normal name. That's my point. That's my problem with some of the foreign movies, because sometimes they'll have the equivalent of Ludwig, but we won't know it. We'll have no idea that their name is different or weird.
I know Ludwig is like that's a show that's been on Broadway for a while. Like, I think Michael C. Hall was in it, was the lead, like the Ludwig and the something itch.
Oh, no, that's Hedwig.
Hedwig, you're right.
Hedwig and the Angry Inch. When you said Ludwig is a show, I was like, what, is it about like Beethoven? That's all I could think of, because that's Beethoven. Right. Ludwig von Beethoven.
You said Hedwig is the other one?
Yeah, Hedwig.
Oh, okay.
Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
My mistake.
Hedwig is also the name of Harry Potter's owl for some goddamn reason.
Angry
I never understood her obsession with the H names or why she had to give them dumb names. But like, why is the school Hogwarts? It's one of those things where we're just so used to saying it, we don't think about what it is. It's called Hogwarts. That's a terrible name for anything. Anything. But anyway.
Yeah, my daughter's almost finished with the first book, and she's telling me everything. I'm like, I know that. You don't have to tell me who that person. I know who that person is. You're like, okay, they're at Hogwarts, right? It's a school.
She likes talking about it. That's good.
Yeah, she's really into it. So I'm hoping that she can, go through the books.
Yeah, they're very good books for what they are. Some people want to take them too seriously or put them too high, but they're good for what they are. And lots of adults can enjoy them for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with an adult enjoying them.
Yeah, she's 10, and they just came into her level. to where she can, they do this AR thing where they have to read things at a higher and higher level in order to earn points to get a grade. So we never did that.
They're good books for that. And plus, like, the first book starts when Harry's 11, and then each one he's a year older, so she can sort of age with him in a way if she wants, depending on how fast she reads the books. If she decides to keep reading them.
Oh, she does.
It was a weird thing for me because, like, people think Harry Potter is much more. I that's what I said.
He may have typed that before he said it.
Okay, yeah. I just think that was another odd thing. Even in this weird fantasy world, the whole point was before Harry found out he was a wizard. The whole point was he had a normal upbringing and thought everything was normal. And then he finds out he's a wizard, which is great. And he finds out that he's allowed to have a pet that he can bring to school, either a cat, an owl, or a toad. Somebody gives. I think the owl is actually a present. I think Hagrid. There's another H for you. Hagrid actually gives him the owl, but he himself names her Hedwig, which I just think is weird. Why would an 11-year-old boy name an owl Hedwig? But anyway, that's me overthinking again. We could have a whole show where I overthink and talk about either the weird things or the things that bother me about the series. But anyway, it's part of the H thing. Harry, Hermione, Hagrid, Hogwarts, Hedwig. Probably more than I'm not thinking of, but that's enough. Hermione is a lovely name, though. So I'll give her credit for bringing Hermione into the consciousness, because there's a lot of girls that have been named that because of the books, which I think is good. I think Hermione's a cool name to get out there.
Can't wait to see people butcher that name when they try to pronounce it.
Yeah. What's funny about that is, like, that gets addressed, but only by the fourth book. For some people, if you didn't know the name, your only way to find out how it's actually pronounced, unless you looked it up somewhere, is by the fourth book. Because in the fourth book, there's a part where there's this where's he from? Bulgaria or Croatian guy or something, and he's trying to say her name and he can't say it, and it shows her like sounding it out how to say it. So I don't know if I always knew or when I found out. It's been too long because those books go back quite a while. I was about 15 when I read the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So some time ago. A lot of people didn't start reading them until the movies came out, but I was reading them before that. Anyway, they're good. It's cool. I think it's something your daughter can definitely enjoy. So it's good that she's talking about it, so she probably enjoys it. So that's cool.
I mean, I'm hoping that'll give us an excuse to watch the films, because I've never seen any of them.
And they're definitely good films. As usual, there's things they had to change and condense from the books, and they're going to irk people like me, but for the most part, pretty darn well done.
That's why we're waiting.
The one that bothers me the most from that is the fifth. The fifth film, they just have to change things around and shorten things so much that I really think it hurts it. The others, they can mostly get around it, I think. I don't know. And as I've said, I never thought the last book was that good, or the last two movies which cover the last book. So to me, it's kind of a disappointing ending, but not terrible. Like, it doesn't ruin it the way people were freaking out about, like, the end of the Game of Thrones show.
Yeah, man. That was unfortunate.
It's weird, though. It's another thing we can talk about maybe another time. I know we've bounced from subject to subject towards the end here because there wasn't too much to say, although in the next couple minutes we'll just do a wrap-up on the new French Extremity, and then we can finish up. But, in bouncing from topic to topic, I bounced myself right off what the hell I was going to say. Man, it was something about, follow your train of thought. The train of thought was on the books and endings. Yes, this is it. Okay, so I remember talking about it with some of you guys, like Eric and you, a while ago too, about sort of how, like, fans' involvement and stuff, and, like, the way they react to stuff, especially with Twitter and everything now, has gotten to a point where it's kind of overboard, and I don't know if it's good or bad because of the way people were bitching about Game of Thrones. Remember, people were trying to remake the entire last season? Can you imagine the implications if that actually happened?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell would that even mean? All these people that put all this time and work and effort into it were told, it's not good enough, do it again. And
they were, like $5 million an episode or something like that?
Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, fan entitlement is going nuts. But then I was thinking recently it did have a positive effect, is that and this is funny too because this is the only time this has ever happened. Like I remember, I know something always reminds me of something else. It makes me too long, so I'll just very quickly say, I remember like not too long ago, people were bringing up that like early in like 2001, or like in the summer of 2001 or something, there was a very short, not that short, no, sorry, there was like a teaser trailer for the Spider-Man movie that was coming out, and it only aired for a little while before they pulled it and changed it because they moved out of the movie because of September 11th. Because there was this whole thing. Because there was a whole thing about people robbing or attacking the World Trade Center or something like that, right? So you've probably seen it. It's on YouTube, right? Have you seen it? Okay. Yeah. So the instance of that was the whole point was didn't know about that at all until years later. And the point is that's the only time I could think of something actually being in theater and then not actually being what they show and pulled and changed or whatever, including the movie itself. But just recently, a few months ago, I went to see a movie. I don't remember what movie it was, and there was a preview for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and we all know what happened with that. So I saw a preview that no longer is the right thing or in the movie. They changed it. Fans complained, and they changed it, but they made it better. I've seen what they did, and they did make it better. It cost them a lot of money to do that, but they did do it, and it will improve the movie. So I'm thinking, I mean, it's good that fans can have that impact, but it's also kind of scary what the implications are, because they can't just bitch about every trailer and then have them go back and change it all the time. I mean, I think the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is better off, because, I mean, it should never have gotten to that point anyway. It looked ghastly and wrong and weird, and now it's a much better look, much more in tune with what we're used to from the video games and stuff like that. But it also makes me think, I wasn't one of the people that said anything, and I certainly didn't, if there was a petition or anything, sign it. But if you were one of those people, if you, I don't know, tweeted at Sega or the studios or whoever was responsible, or you signed a petition, I hope you're going to go see the movie now. I really hope you're going to support this film that you cared enough to bitch about and change. So, I don't know. I guess that's kind of a non sequitur. We can't really get into it because that's a whole thing. But I'm just going to say, it's a kind of a weird place where we're at, where sometimes that stuff will get taken seriously and get a response. But it's kind of scary thinking what that could eventually come to.
It's kind of like these studios do a whole bunch of screenings, beforehand, the test screenings, and I don't know. I just feel like you put too much stock into that stuff. I mean, you've got people that may or may not know what they're talking about,
I know you always hear about how sometimes like a film gets like its ending dumbed down or switched because the test audience didn't like it. They want the happy ending or the simple ending, and that basically ruins the stupid film.
Right.
Stuff like that. But yeah, the Sonic thing just really struck me because it's the only time in my life where I was at the theater, I saw a preview for a movie that's coming out, and now I realize that preview is not the official thing, and that it's wrong and is not connected to the movie. It's discarded. It's tossed away. But that was actually in theaters, and I saw it. So,
was that the one with Jim Carrey?
Yeah, Jim Carrey's like Dr. Robotnik.
And he's not going to be that in the new version?
No, they didn't change anything about him. It was Sonic. Sonic was animated and looked ridiculous. He looked weird and scary. Mm-hmm. Like, you can look it up what he looked like. And they redesigned him and made him look better, is what it was. They might have changed the voice too. I'm not sure.
Is Sega? I guess Sega's not. They're probably just licensed the character out.
Yeah, I guess they're not really responsible. It's whoever the studio was. So I guess they weren't tweeting at Sega. Sega's, they're not what they were anymore. They're much smaller than they used to be.
Unfortunately, they still put out some good games though.
They do. It's still weird for somebody our age to see like Sega games on like the Nintendo Switch.
Oh yeah,
it's weird. Or the fact that they can make like Mario Olympics and put Sonic in there. That seems really weird. I think that's what it is. But anyway, we've done some tangents there to fill in some time, and plus it's good to talk about some stuff like some of the other movies. But that is it for the new French Extremity series, which wasn't as smooth as we wanted to do because we had some gaps in there, but still, it was fun. It's still fun covering them. We did kind of have a bit of a miss with the last one, which is probably one in retrospect we wouldn't have done. But for the most part, we're pretty good about picking movies that are at least worth watching, even if we didn't love everything about them, or at least worth having a discussion about. That one was kind of hard to discuss because it's just sort of bland and forgettable. This movie, I'm glad we got to talk about it, but again, it was sort of a short movie, so we had to fill in some time there. But in any case, we are saying au revoir now to the new French Extremity. And as what we said, whenever we conclude a series on anything, this doesn't slam the door for any future episode covering a movie from this. It just means we're done with this for a while. But, maybe sometime in the future, although probably the far future, we could do another movie that fits into that genre. But for now, we're leaving it behind and going on to just some new episodes as we move towards Christmas and the New Year. And as we said, hopefully we can get a bit more consistency going in the New Year, because we know 2019 was not great. We had a lot of missed weeks and gaps and stuff, which is never our intent. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but we'll try to do better about that. But the new French Extremity, it's one of those things that I wasn't too aware of while it was happening. It was only until after it was kind of considered over that I got into it and became aware of it. But definitely some cool stuff there. I think it breathed some new life into horror, particularly. It showed some different ways to do horror. I think it's also good for people that are branching out, that are maybe not watched too many foreign films. I think it's a good move. I think it's a good thing, particularly if you're a horror film. It's a good way to seg into some foreign films. It might be a good sort of opener for you to say, oh, okay, yeah, let's watch some movies from some other countries. And so it might be a good what the hell is the word I'm looking for? Gateway, I guess, sort of, for that.
Yeah, I'm glad we ended on this one. I think it's a good one to end on. It's a good one that I feel like really sums up the period, the subgenre as a whole. Like weird, twisted, extremely violent.
And usually some sort of socially relevant message is usually in these movies. Sometimes they're subtle and sometimes not so subtle, but that's another thing. They usually have some undercurrent. Even something like Martyrs has, some pretty distinct themes running throughout. I'll just say there's just a few others that we didn't cover that are really interesting and cool. I still haven't seen Inside, but Inside is known just for its insane amount of violence and gore, where an entire house basically gets covered in blood while these two women have an insane face-off. I really want to see that.
They did an American remake of that not too long ago.
Of course they did. I've heard Ills, or translated as Them, is really good. I'd like to see that. Maybe we did some weird picks, but we still did some ones that I think were kind of important to do. I think, we could not do Irreversible, just so infamous. And the question we were trying to answer in the broader scheme of things in doing these movies was do these movies have any merit beyond just shock value? I'd say mostly yes. Obviously, there's a few where the shock value is the only thing that really holds it together. But I would say mostly these are films that have more going for them than just the extremism that we see in it. They usually have something that holds it together, or whether it's some sort of theme or message, even if it's not much. But I'd say these are definitely movies that have some worth. They're not just cheap exploitation. Certainly they have those elements, but I would put them on par with lots of pretty good movies and above plenty of the sleazy horror that that has been around. Not that I'm not saying that stuff's not enjoyable too. I'm just saying I think this might be a step above it. Some of it can even be quite artistic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was still really pleasantly surprised by. I know we picked a really obscure one in Demon Lover, but I really liked Demon Lover. I really liked its style.
Yeah.
Sure, it wasn't very coherent, and it was kind of a mess in the second half, but I still really got a lot of enjoyment out of it. I really liked the performances. I really liked the atmosphere and style. So I think that was a cool one. For sure. I'm glad we got to do that. What else? We did Sab, we did The Pornographer, and we did this, and we did Frontiers. Those were the ones. This and Frontiers have a lot in common. They're both, the kind of the horror movie trope of a group going off to a isolated place and being surrounded by strange people and then falling into danger and stuff. But still enough differences to separate them.
Oh yeah.
But this one touched on some stuff that wasn't in the others, like the incest and bestiality. I know I'm going to sound crazy, but I could have gone for some more incest and bestiality, honestly, for this movie. I feel like this movie is good. I just think it's a little too short. I could have used maybe 10 or 15 more minutes to flesh out the story, or to have some more of the aforementioned stuff thrown in. Because why the hell not? You've already got it in there. Let's see some more. I don't know, but still an enjoyable movie for sure, and a cool genre that's not entirely dead, really. Like most definitions have it running from about 98 to maybe 2010 or so, but Gaspar Noé keeps cranking out films, and they usually get associated with it. I finally have access to watch Climax, so I'm going to watch that soon. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, me too. I need to watch it. It's a lot of those guys. A lot of the guys that cut their teeth on this stuff are still making films.
Mm-hmm. That at least have these elements. Maybe they're not fully in the movement, but they at least have these elements because that's what they're good at. But yeah, a lot of cool, talented directors and filmmakers.
I mean, considering that there's not really a horror scene in France, and this is not like over here. We have a whole genre dedicated to that. It's not. I don't think it's like that over there. So these were kind of one-off films that really gained a lot of popularity in other parts of the world than they did there. So
yeah. Yeah, some good stuff. And the other one that I really need to see that's so hard to find is the what is it? The I Stand Alone film, the one that came before Irreversible.
I can't find it. Yeah, I've never been able to watch it.
But hopefully someday I'll be able to track down that one because that's supposed to be, again, a pretty good example of the genre and just a really unique and interesting film. So, we're going to cool up for a while, I guess, on extremism stuff. You won't be hearing us talking about things like rape for a while, but I'm sure it will always find its way back in.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there. But, yeah, so that's Sheitan from 2006, and we'll close the book for now on the new French Extremity, at least as far as this series goes, but maybe in the future. But going forward, look forward to some completely different new stuff that we will do. Jay and I will discuss. As we said, we have a list and we have things that we're always adding to it. Things are always occurring to us. So we're not running out of ideas anytime soon or material. We just have to get some consistency going, and hopefully we can get that going in the near future. So that'll do it for now, and hopefully next week we'll be back with something fresh. Thanks so much for watching. That is Jay. I'm Cole, and we will see you all again real soon. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.